Coming off the success of the original season of Xena Warrior Princess, very little time passed before production for the new season began. The show, originally a spin-off of Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, had now established its own direction, inspiration, and dedicated fan base. There was huge potential for more entertaining adventures, and the cast and crew delivered rather quickly. From late 1996 to the spring of 1997, another 22 episodes aired, proving to be an even bigger hit with fans despite some unforeseen challenges behind the scenes. What exactly did the folks from the Xena crew present to the world this time? My name is Aaron, and let's get straight into it. This is A Tale of Xena Warrior Princess, Season 2. With our bard Apodidia brought back to life at the end of Is There a Doctor in the House, the new season called for an expansion of her relationship with the warrior princess while exploring further key moments from Xena's past. After Season 1 explored several of these elements in episodes such as Dreamworker, the trend carried on with an increasingly darker tone as Season 2 progressed. Of course, plenty of comedic moments were featured to balance out some of the heavier storylines, and they were as funny as ever. Much of the crew behind the scenes from the original season returned for the new 22-episode cycle. From a technical standpoint, thanks to the positive reception for Season 1, the folks at Universal now allowed Xena episodes to be shot in 35mm, after the first 24 were shot in 16mm. The opening intro now acknowledged Lucy Lawless's co-star, Renee O'Connor, in between clips. Very cool. However, the most notable aspect from Season 2 happened off the set, thousands of miles away from New Zealand. In October 1996, after a few of the newest episodes aired, Lawless was invited to The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in New York and was set to perform a stunt on an Argo during a segment. Unfortunately, the Argo lost its footing during a take and landed on Lawless, breaking her pelvis. With production ongoing back in her native homeland, the timing couldn't have been worse. Writers scrambled to accommodate their injured star, switching around certain plot points to keep the show going. One of the freelance writers at the time, Paul Robert Coyle, who would go on to write episodes for The Legendary Journeys, recalled the amount of energy meetings held with the producers to come up with fresh ideas quickly while Lawless was in Burbank Hospital. Despite the pressures of staying on schedule, the crew managed to pull it off. Lawless eventually returned to finish the season, albeit in a reduced physical capacity until she was completely healed. When you consider how much was at stake, it's amazing to think how quickly the crew was able to improvise to make it through the season at all. More on the episodes directly affected by the incident later. For now, let's begin our look back at each installment as they aired from 1996 to 1997. The first episode, Orphan of War, written by Stephen L. Sears and directed by the returning Charles Siebert, aired on September 30th, 1996. Ladies and gentlemen, the debut of Gabrielle's unmistakable money bra outfit, a staple of the series for the next few years. As the two heroines arrive to a village compromised of many centaur totems, Xena discusses more of her vicious past. Her army had invaded this exact area and overwhelmed the centaurs. A warrior named Dagnan is mentioned as being one of Xena's accomplices in the battle, a competent soldier in his own right. When Gabrielle asks why Xena's army didn't finish them off, the warrior princess says a deal was made between the two parties to stop the violence. Look out! Gabrielle showcases an ever-increasing skill in combat with her signature staff, as she and Xena destroy the men with ease, highlighted by the warrior princess using her sword to deflect this arrow, splitting it in two pieces that subsequently take these two dudes out. Nice opening brawl. Centaurs arrive on the scene as the remaining soldiers retreat, led by Callisto. Xena and Gabrielle both toss their weapons off to the side as a gesture of peace. The leading centaur then reveals a moniker Xena used to go by in her past, the Destroyer of Nations. When Callisto questions why she has returned after promising not to years before, the warrior princess assures him it's to protect the centaurs from Dagnan, who is after the Ixion Stone. This young boy then frog splashes his way down toward Xena from the trees with a sword in hand. This is Solon, played by David Taylor. The young lad is looking to avenge the death of his father, Boreas, by taking out who he believes is responsible, Xena herself. As Solon proclaims himself to be Xena's greatest enemy, the warrior princess is left visibly distraught. She shocks the world with the following revelation. Solon is her son. What the f? As Solon is having a ball with his friends in the village, we shift to a flashback. A younger Callisto approaches the destroyer of nations in the woods, with no love lost between the two after Boreas' death shortly before the meetup. Remaining stoic, the destroyer offers to withdraw her army and hands over a baby to the centaur. This is not only her son, but the son of Boreas. She requests the centaur to care for Solon as his own, to prevent the young boy from becoming as vicious as his mother. Back in the present, Gabrielle cannot believe her friend could abandon her baby. Xena changes the topic by restating their mission to stop Dagnan and nothing more. Unbeknownst to them, Seer, one of Dagnan's lieutenants, caught every word of their conversation thanks to his spyglass and uncanny ability to read lips. The warlord orders for information on anything he can use against Xena. Dagnan looking so much like the late Ultimate Warrior from the WWF still amuses me. In a hut, Xena and Callisto argue over Solon holding a sword, ultimately agreeing that only he can and should choose his own path. Back outside, the warrior princess explains that Ixion was the father of the centaurs, who chose nobility over wickedness for his children, and stored the evil away in the exact stone Dagnan is after. When Gabrielle attempts to convince Xena to tell her son the truth again, the warrior princess states she'll handle it her own way. But now there's a bigger problem. Thanks to Seer, the secret of Solon's relationship with his real mother is out. Xena then pays a visit to Boreas' grave and senses her son hanging out in the trees, asking him to jump down. Solon begins to open up to the warrior princess, recalling the brief memories he has of his mother. Xena once again denies his accusation of killing Boreas, instead revealing they were once close. Solon runs away before she shares more details, and she spots Dagnan's lieutenant with the help of the flash from his spyglass. Using pressure points, Xena finds out from Seer that Dagnan knows her secrets. Meanwhile, Gabrielle searches for Solon in the trees in an attempt to befriend the young boy. As the two begin to get along, Dagnan's goons arrive and kidnap Solon after overwhelming the young bard. Gabrielle relays the message to her friend, and that's all she needed. At Dagnan's camp, the warlord holds Solon hostage inside a cage and taunts him with the key. Inside a tent, the warrior princess calmly surprises the warlord as they reminisce on old times. With the threat of Solon's death if she resorts to physical force, Dagnan demands three things: the Ixion stone, Xena to leave the valley, and some human kindness. She knocks him into another lifetime and retrieves the key. In stealth mode, Xena uses her whip to pull Solon's cage high enough to free her son. When she tosses the key over to him, Dagnan's reinforcements catch on and the action resumes. With a killer swanton dive and fancy acrobatics, Xena swiftly takes the fight to the goons. Suddenly, the whip holding the cage in place loosens up, creating a sinkhole upon impact below. As he barely hangs on, Xena gets to Solon in time above the Ixion caverns. To avoid arrows from Dagnan's archers, mother and son are forced to take a huge fall. Excited, the warlord orders his men to begin the search for the stone, Xena, and Solon. When the young boy's arm is broken, Xena tells her son more about his father as she mends his injury, assuring him that he died a hero. As Gabrielle prepares to search for Xena and Solon with the centaurs, mother and son locate the Ixion temple. One issue: the stone is gone. Using a branch as a horn, Xena alerts everyone in the area of her location, and Gabrielle tosses a rope down to him. With Callisto and his men pulling on the rope for support, Dagnan and his goons try to stop them, but to no avail. Xena and Solon are pulled to safety, to the intense dismay of Dagnan. The way he pounds this rock is hilarious. But then, Solon's sword falls next to him. The Ixion stone was on the sword the whole time, flashing green when it separated from the pommel. Now in possession of the stone, Dagnan vows to take over Athens after killing both Xena and Hercules. With one large gulp, he transforms into the most devious and powerful centaur the world's ever seen. Gabrielle reminds her friend she's always with her, and Callisto asks Xena to take care of Solon in case the worst happens. As the young bard tends to Solon's injury, he reveals he no longer harbors any hatred towards the warrior princess. The new Dagnan then emerges from the trees, easily overcoming the other centaurs. As Xena and Dagnan engage in physical and verbal exchanges, the Warlord reveals the truth. It was Dagnan himself who killed Boreas. With Solon witnessing everything, Xena is able to backflip away and launch her sword to a giant crossbow the centaur set up earlier, sending a huge arrow directly at Dagnan's abdomen. The day is saved to the delight of everyone, especially Xena's son. The episode ends with her tearfully bidding farewell to her son after he no longer desires to be a warrior. Although Lawless would later regret not playing this scene more intensely, I found the ending to be extremely good regardless. Xena revealing her motherhood to kick off Season 2 was quite a twist. Remember Nothing, written by Chris Mannheim and Elle Sears and directed by Anson Williams, was the first to air in October 1996, debuting on the 7th. A moment of confusion occurs as Gabrielle is seen roaming through the countryside with Xena in her original outfit. While not a big deal, it would have been cool to see clips of Gabrielle in each of her different outfits to show the progression leading up to her new look in Season 2. Anyway, in this temple straight out of the Titans, it's the 11-year anniversary since Xena's brother Lysias was killed by Cortese. She is performing a ritual in honor of her fallen brother by lighting up candles to call upon the fates. When Xena adds in a prayer for Gabrielle to never need to take a life, goons begin an assault outside the temple. Our two heroines intervene, with Xena dishing out tons of punishment via killer spin kicks around several different pillars. As Gabrielle clears out some goons off to the side, an extremely cool fight takes place. Xena encounters a soldier who specializes in the Brazilian art of capoeira. When the warrior princess holds her own against this lad, he grows flustered and charges at her with a sword. Big mistake. Gabrielle then alerts Xena of an incoming soldier behind her. Problem is, he was only a kid. The jet black-haired heroine regrets killing the kid, running back into the temple in disbelief. The three faces of fate then appear and thank Xena for protecting their temple, allowing her one wish for her service. Xena laments killing the young soldier and asks for his life back. The fates agree, under one condition. The warrior princess is never to draw a single drop of blood in rage again. Xena rushes back outside to locate Gabrielle, but the young bard is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, Xena's signature warrior outfit is switched into a simple village attire. A voice calls out her name, and she instantly recognizes it. It's her brother Lysias in the flesh, played by Aaron Divot. Now in this alternate dimension, Xena returns to her hometown of Amphipolis with her brother. Realizing this is the work of the fates, she accepts her new life free from her warrior ways. Meanwhile, a slave is savagely whipped 20 times as familiar faces look on. It's none other than Mezentius and Cricus, old foes from Season 1. Now having never been defeated by Xena, the two warlords are working together to take over the region. The former warrior princess returns to her home as she continues adjusting to her new reality. While looking inside a box filled with valuables, she quickly restrains a man sneaking up behind her. This is Matthias, her fiancé, who couldn't be more excited to hold their wedding. When he mentions their arrangement was the final promise they made to her, Xena is shocked to discover he was talking about her mother. Yes, in this alternate dimension, it is Cyrene who is dead instead of Lysias. Her younger brother recalls that instead of fighting Cortese, he and his sister both ran away to safety. Clearly in anguish, Xena states she can at least be in peace knowing she never shamed Cyrene in this life. Despite lamenting a future without her mother or her best friend, the non-warrior princess tearfully declares to carry on. Excellent scene. Xena then prevents the men in charge of Mezentius and Cricus' slaves from harming the local merchant by pulling the rug from underneath him. Oh, Tartarus. Another one of the consequences for her refusal to fight Cortese. Gabrielle was never saved from slave life during the opening minutes of Sins of the Past. When the young slave is pushed for bumping into the slave boss, Xena prevents him from attacking any further and kills him. No, not really. Matthias shows up, informing the boss of her intentions to find a house slave suitable for their married life. Gabrielle is declared to be not for sale, and the boss storms off. Of course, Xena is not pleased when she discovers Mezentius is one of the warlords responsible for this mess. Xena and Matthias argue over slavery, with the man claiming she can't change the world no matter what she thinks. One of the fates appears, reminding Xena that all this can go away with one drop of blood. but Xena refuses, setting her sights on freeing Gabrielle without violence. Meanwhile, the young slave is back with Mezentius, having a dog lick a slice of his bread and spitting in his wine. The looks he gives as he consumes each of these afterward are funny. The warlords declare an assault on Amphipolis with a third warlord known as Capucius. Rain! The two siblings set up the dinner table and Xena is tested even further on her promise while they discuss the town's dire situation. The next morning, she begins Operation Rescue Gabrielle by sneaking into a wagon headed to the warlords. As Gabrielle slaves away, Xena sneaks up from behind and rushes her out of sight. Understandably, the young slave has no idea who Xena is and, to make matters worse, she has settled into her grim situation. Gabrielle reveals ugly marks on her shoulder, who would do such a thing, and expresses no desire of being a runaway slave. When the slave boss is in the mood for some mead, Xena bursts through the barrel and sets the bloody place on fire, including Mezentius' men and this rope that helps catapult her and Gabrielle onto the same wagon from earlier. Welcome to freedom, Gabrielle. When the newly freed slave questions why Xena saved her, the non-warrior princess explains it's because she reminds her so much of her best friend, the kindest person full of wonder who would never give up on anyone. Lysias then explains his plan for a counterattack against the warlords, but Xena refuses to fight once again. As he attempts to encourage her, the new and improved Gabrielle emerges from the other room wearing the same dress Cyrene once wore. Beautiful moment. Suddenly, Matthias returns with a bunch of the warlords' men, having made a deal with them to peacefully retrieve the newly freed slave. But of course they take more than Gabrielle. Lysias tosses a dagger over to his sister, but she refuses to catch it. Now imprisoned, Xena's younger brother cannot believe his sister is so unwilling to fight back. Her promise is tested even further when Lysias says he'd rather die fighting those bastards than living with himself if he doesn't. A teary Gabrielle opens up to Xena, expressing how much it meant for her to be free again, albeit for a brief period of time. I remind you of your friend. No, you are my friend. Slave boss guy is back and makes his way to Lysias. A scuffle breaks out with Xena catching a dagger and using it to break free. The mystery attacker turns out to be Matthias, who helps Xena rescue the others. Xena's brother heads for the castle and interrupts a toast from Mezentius. Xena soon joins in and the siblings engage in a killer tag team action sequence. Lysias using his sword and Xena using only her martial arts skills. Great action here. When the non-warrior princess refuses to fight with a sword, it falls next to Gabrielle. Mezentius charges directly at her, and the newly freed slave performs a fatality. Xena has had enough of this crap, swiftly killing one of the soldiers as she bids farewell to her younger brother. She is immediately transported back to the moment before she killed the young soldier. But this time, she knocks him down and makes him swear to not waste his life killing others. The warrior princess happily accepts her old life back, and our two heroines proceed to the next adventure. I like this episode a lot. Nice to see Lysias in this what-if scenario. The Giant Killer, written by Terrence Winter and directed by Gary Jones, aired a week later. Xena and Gabrielle come across a graveyard with huge bones scattered everywhere. The warrior princess is searching for an old friend a decade after they agreed to meet here. Sure enough, they are quickly reunited. It's Goliath, who is currently making a living by assisting the Philistine army. He also seeks revenge against another giant, Gareth, for killing his family. Meanwhile, Gabrielle is taken a walk and is greeted by Philistine warlord Dagon, who's holding Israelites hostage with his fellow soldiers, including this young lad, David. Indeed, this is a retelling of the revered biblical tale. When David is knocked down, a fight breaks out with our two heroines getting the better of the Philistines. With her sword pointed at Dagon, Goliath stops the quarrel when he informs the warlord that Xena is a friend. The next day, Dagon explains he's done all he can to peacefully bring civilization to the non-compliant Israelites. Declining his offer to join forces, Xena decides to have a talk with her giant friend. Gabrielle takes this time to visit the prisoners, bringing them food as David reveals he also writes his own stories, the Psalms. This guard then finds a hole the Israelites were planning to use as an escape route. Their punishment? Death. Meanwhile, Xena fails to sway Goliath away from his arrangement with the Philistines. The giant remains determined to locate the man who killed his family, with the money his current job will pay him. Back in the town, David is about to be executed, even with Gabrielle implementing her hooves and harlot strategy. One chakram toss later, Xena and Gabrielle make it clear whose side they are on in another brawl against the Philistines. Dagon has had enough of this crap, ordering another soldier to sound the horn for Goliath. The giant looks on from behind these trees as Xena takes out more soldiers and leads the escape on horses. The Israelites safely return to King Saul, who cordially invites our two heroines into his kingdom. Meanwhile, Dagon is scolding Goliath for allowing Xena and Gabrielle to escape with the Israelites. When the giant hesitates at the thought of battling his friend, the warlord offers double the money and information on Gareth's whereabouts if he does. With the Philistines on the move, Xena proposes a fight to the death against the giant. All she needs is one clear shot at his weak point, the spot above the bridge of his nose. Later on, David is writing about the fight against the Philistines earlier, and Gabrielle eagerly joins him. After she recites her own story in tribute to him, a lady named Sarah walks in and David reveals this is the woman he is set to marry. Gabrielle really can't catch a break with the lads, can she? The young bard finds Xena staring out a window, who regretfully admits the events from a decade earlier. While battling Gareth and his army, Xena and Goliath were caught off guard, and when Goliath decided to protect the warrior princess, Gareth killed his family in cold blood. Understandably, she is not looking forward to battling the giant. The Philistines arrive the next morning, with Dagon accepting Xena's terms to her proposed challenge. At the sound of the horn, Goliath appears, shielding his weak point with a helmet. The old friends duke it out, and that bastard Dagon orders his men to attack the Israelites. Xena takes out the archers with her chakram and leads the giant toward the battling armies. As David and Gabrielle fight off Philistine forces, Goliath takes out Jonathan. Thanks to this salt, the warrior princess is able to limit the damage, and the rest of the Israelites escape to safety in a cave. Jonathan is confirmed dead, leaving the kingdom without an heir. Xena tells Gabrielle she cannot kill Goliath now because the Israelites need another one of their own to believe in. Enter David, who volunteers to perform the task himself. Xena attempts once more to reason with Goliath. The giant is brought to tears when expressing his regrets from years past, willing to do whatever it takes to get his revenge. The young bard reunites with David at his request, and he recites one of his psalms, "The Lord is my shepherd." This is after she got officially friend-zoned. The next day, David advances by himself toward the giant, to the amusement of the Philistines. With his sling in hand, David is quickly swarmed by Goliath. The young man of God uses his agility to avoid the giant's massive slashes long enough for the sun to shine through the clouds. Xena calls for the Israelite army to use their shields to reflect the sunlight directly at Goliath's helmet, and he takes it off. With his weak point now unprotected, David launches a stone with his sling straight at it. David has defeated Goliath. As his remaining forces get destroyed, Dagon decides to bounce, remarking that this is far from over. As David is heralded by his people as their new hero, Goliath has one last word with Xena before drifting off to the afterlife. The episode ends with the warrior princess sending her regards to the giant, choosing to remember him as a great warrior, husband, and friend. Girls Just Wanna Have Fun was the Halloween episode of the season, airing on the 21st. This one was written by the duo of Adam Marmus and Nora K. Foster and directed by TJ Scott. But no, Cyndi Lauper does not guest star. A poor lad is running away from wolves in the woods as Xena receives word from this gentleman that 6 ladies have vanished without a trace. The camera produces this cool effect, early and often. The warrior princess deduces that this is the Bacchae forest, the hunting grounds for Bacchus, the god of wine, who must be responsible for the missing ladies. The young bard points out they should hear the music of Orpheus to tame the Bacchae. As Gabrielle elaborates on the Bacchae's abilities, Joxer frantically runs for his life. Xena keeps the wolves away with her whip, and Joxer taunts them from above on a tree trunk. Joxer says he's on a mission from Orpheus, and hands the warrior princess a bag. She pulls out the contents inside. Orpheus's own head. Nothing out of the ordinary. Orpheus confirms Xena's suspicion of Bacchus at work, stating he's been cursed to see and hear the terror brought to the world without his body. The god of wine is ready to convert those ladies into full-fledged Bacchae in only a day's time, so Orpheus begrudgingly asks Xena for help. Before setting off to recover Orpheus's lyre, the warrior princess tells Gabrielle of a past encounter with the Bacchae leader, where her army was unable to save an innocent woman from being killed. This woman was Orpheus's wife, Eurydice. Meanwhile, the Bacchae informed their master of their failure to recover Orpheus's head due to Xena's efforts. Excited to hear her name again, Bacchus orders his army to gather the others. Xena, Gabrielle, Joxer, and Orpheus arrive to a festival held to scare off the Bacchae. Xena placing Orpheus's head on a headless scarecrow to blend in is brilliant. At Orpheus's home, Melodus, the one in charge of guarding the lyre, has been killed by the Bacchae and the instrument has gone missing. A woman then screams in the distance, while Joxer fiddles around with Orpheus's other instruments. He says he went against his mother's wish to become a musician because, in his mind, playing music is for sissies. Gabrielle, in a trance-like state, makes her way to a dance party and notices the woman who screamed earlier. The young bard hits the dance floor as an extremely catchy tune plays in the background. Remember, if you want the love, you got to drink the blood. Meanwhile, two other Bacchae are in possession of the lyre, but all these two lads are looking for is some real action. Xena breaks up the party with a sweet flying kick before giant swinging one of the Bacchae all the way to Tartarus. Back on the dance floor, Gabrielle is in another world as she dances with these two ladies. Joxer, holding onto a staff with Orpheus's head on top, detects Bacchae near Gabrielle. He tells this guy to hold on to Orpheus, and he actually starts dancing with him. Funny gag. The Mighty One pulls Gabrielle away from the ladies to her dismay. Xena returns and grabs Orpheus from the dancing guy, and amazingly, it is Joxer who lays out the plan. Get lyre, someone plays lyre, Orpheus sings, Bacchae sleep, kill Bacchus, and free missing ladies. Maybe he is mighty after all. He is also able to talk his way into the journey after revealing that he can play the lyre, but don't tell anyone, he has a reputation to maintain. Uh-oh. The Mighty One desperately presents his case to Gabrielle that the mark on Xena's neck can only be a Bacchae bite. This leads to an entertaining fuss between the two, capped off by this hilarious death stare from Joxer. Later that night, Joxer is snoozing away as the warrior princess makes her way over to him with blade in hand and stabs him right in the heart. Just kidding, she kills a sand spider near him. At Bacchus HQ, he starts the ritual of creating a new breed of Bacchae and vows Xena to be among those permanently altered. The three heroes arrive to a graveyard mired in dryads, Bacchus' sworn enemies. The warrior princess explains that one of these bones to the heart is the key to taking out the Bacchae. They may not jump at you, but they will attempt to pull you under, as evident by Joxer's hilarious reaction here. Xena and Gabrielle prevent him from being buried alive before flying dryads engage their own assault. After Xena chops off two dryad heads, the heroes have plenty of bones to use against the Bacchae. But here's the thing, Gabrielle is one of them. At these catacombs, Xena ignores Orpheus's plea to forget about her friend. He then convinces Joxer to take over, since Xena is likely to get turned into a Bacchae herself. With Dryad bone in hand, Joxer nervously presses on and Gabrielle is seen crawling around the area like Spider-Man. The Gabby Yo-Yo, ladies and gentlemen. She eventually jumps onto the Mighty One and Xena launches her bloodthirsty friend off him. Man, she really looks cool as a Bacchae. Bacchus' ritual continues as we witness more great shots of Bacchae Gabrielle while new members drink from his goblet of blood. Xena commands Joxer and Orpheus to find the lyre and play it ASAP while she goes after Bacchus. In the nick of time, the warrior princess uses her chakram to deflect the goblet away from Gabrielle. The battle ensues with Xena kicking new breed ass, even using her killer fire-breathing maneuver on one of them. When she is eventually outnumbered and Gabrielle is about to drink from the goblet, Joxer begins playing the lyre and Orpheus sings away. Bacchus has had enough of this crap and pounds the Mighty One away from the lyre. Xena joins the fight above, stabs him with a dryad bone, and kicks him off. He is surely dead. Rising up like the Undertaker, Bacchus explains that only a Bacchae can kill him. Gabrielle does the honors at Bacchus' command after Xena accepts her fate. Behold, the warrior Bacchae and the Bacchae of Potidaea. Somehow, Xena unleashes her signature war cry and flies down to Bacchus, stabbing him again. Each victim is reverted back to human form, and the curse on Orpheus is no more. A really cool episode, perfect for anyone's Halloween binge-watching plans. She's back. The Return of Callisto, another adventure directed by Scott and written by R.J. Stewart, debuting 3 days before Halloween. In an episode billed as Xena vs. the Blonde Barbarian by MCA at the time, sounds like a damn monster movie. It's feeding time in a prison. Hidden inside this heavily guarded cell is Callisto. She prophesizes to one of the guards that she'll make them all squeal like pigs before she kills them and calls them a fat, pathetic piece of dung. She swipes an object from the guard undetected as he attacks her for her remarks. It turns out to be a blade, using it to free herself from the chair. Interrupting the guards playing craps, the blonde barbarian lives up to her name, killing every last one of them with ease. This little piggy gets the worst of it after Callisto taunts him as only she can. She frees Theodorus and issues 2 requests. Recruit the healthy prisoners as her new soldiers and bring along that same chair from her cell. Meanwhile, Gabrielle is adorably snoozing away as Xena welcomes an intruder with a punch to the face. It's Perdiccas, whose presence awakens the young bard faster than you can say Argo. Her fellow Potidean has not been able to stop thinking of her, dropping to one knee and proposing to the young bard. Xena is so ready to kill this kid. Perdiccas explains he has grown weary of fighting after several nightmares of the individuals he killed in battle. He seeks a new life with the woman he was arranged to marry before she left Potidea. We switch over to our pal Joxer the Magnificent, bragging to kids about fighting only the toughest opponents. Callisto and her army barge in, telling Joxer to deliver a message to the good Xena. Every drop of innocent blood shed from here on out is on Xena's hands, as well as Callisto's. The 2 heroines discuss Perdiccas' proposal, with Xena giving Gabrielle her blessing should she agree to marry him. Joxer then relays the news to the warrior princess of Callisto being out of prison. That's all she needed. The blonde barbarian is as good as her word, ravaging a village full of innocents with her newly formed army. Before she stabs a villager in plain sight, Xena's chakram saves the day. Callisto kicks the dude and tosses a blade at a little girl. Xena barely catches the weapon but quickly realizes she was baited. Callisto could kill her now, but she instead opts to kill Xena's soul first. Gabrielle and Perdiccas assist the warrior princess in clearing out the attackers from the village. After he kills another man during the fight, Perdiccas has had enough of this crap. He tosses the bloody sword away and implements the Eric Cartman strategy.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
The answer is yes, the young bard tells Xena. She's definitely gonna kill him now. Nope, the wedding is on, with Xena and Joxer as the attendees. Before long, it's official. As Joxer congratulates Perdiccas, Xena promises Gabrielle to visit her so much she'll grow sick of it. Holy Aphrodite! Gabrielle walks away with her new husband, and Xena is left alone with the flowers. When I first saw this episode, I truly expected her to toss those on the ground and stomp on them relentlessly. But no, she quietly says goodbye to her friend. The newlywed couple share a tender moment together as they agree to name their first daughter Xena. Good lord. Meanwhile, the warrior princess lets off some steam, Bennett, by pressure pointing Theodorus for info on Callisto's whereabouts. He says he hasn't seen her since word spread of Xena traveling without the young bard. Shoot. Hey, why don't you lads get a room? Oh no. Callisto slices Perdiccas' arm and kicks Gabrielle in the face. Xena arrives on Argo and the 2 warriors exchange vicious shots. Then, without warning, the blonde barbarian charges at Perdiccas and stabs him. Poor Gabrielle still cannot catch a break with the lads. A shortened version of the burial theme solidifies Perdiccas' send-off, and the young bard wants revenge. She uncharacteristically longs for Callisto's blood on her hands, demanding Xena to teach her how to fight with the sword. After initially declining her request, Xena agrees after some light strikes from Gabrielle. Each clang while they practice parrying fuels the young bard more and more into killing Callisto. Incredible work by Renee O'Connor in this scene. Elsewhere, Callisto refuses any intoxicants from Theodorus during a wild party, preferring to endure life in all its agonizing glory. She even threatens to kill him if he falls in love with her. Xena, Gabrielle, and Joxer close in on the party with the young bard ready to bust some heads. The warrior princess has a tough time commanding her friend, resulting in her unusual prayer to the heavens. Witnessing this from afar, Gabrielle later tells Xena of her plans to return home to mourn. Remember how Gabrielle said she was going back to Podedia? She lied. Gabrielle is unable to finish Callisto, who awakens quickly since she was never plastered the night before. The young bard would rather die than take a life, and the barbarian doesn't need to be told twice. With Gabrielle used as bait, Xena walks right into the trap and is detained on the same chair from Callisto's prison cell. The barbarian then orders for Gabrielle to burn. When all hope seems lost, Joxer storms in and eats a backfist from Callisto. Xena uses the temporary distraction to swipe the chakram off Callisto's hip and hurl it upwards to catch it. Joxer then gets shot by an archer. However, Xena is able to break herself and Gabrielle free with her signature weapon. Another excellent brawl ensues as our two heroines kick loads of ass.
Web swing!
Time for the boss fight. How good are you at chariot, Xena? It's another great day for a race, lads. Callisto has challenged Xena to a chariot race, and off they go. The blonde has an early lead, but the princess is catching up. But wait, there goes the tire. What strategy by Callisto, straight out of a James Bond flick. And now, the warrior princess jumps on her chariot, holding onto a whip tied to the chariot of Callisto. Can she climb aboard? She can! And a fight breaks out. Who will assume control? Neither, as Xena knocks herself and Callisto off the chariot and into quicksand. The barbarian cackles away while Xena uses her chakram and whip to pull herself to safety. She's totally gonna save Callisto too, right? Nope, she's gone, man! Joxer's injuries are not fatal. The two heroines remember Perdiccas during a sunset, and the crew pays tribute to Hudson Like's body double from the first Callisto episode, Michelle Calvert, who died shortly after the episode was filmed. Classy end to another incredible episode, one of Season 2's finest offerings. Here's another doozy. Warrior, Princess, Tramp. Written by R.J. Stewart and directed by returning director Josh Becker. This was the first installment of November, airing on the 4th. Princess Diana, Prince Philemon, and King Elias, pardon my mispronunciation on another video, all welcome a future queen into the family. The king has grown severely ill and believes his time may be near. He calls for Xena to ensure his daughter has a seamless transition from princess to queen. After all, who is mightier than Xena? Joxer! Duh! The Mighty One is in a pub bragging about his successful thrashing of Callisto and his moment of affection with the warrior princess. Gabrielle claws at Joxer's weak spot, his nose, and commands him to stop messing with Xena's reputation. Joxer then claims the warrior princess was in the pub an hour ago, springing the young bard into action. Meanwhile, Xena is drinking in the castle with this dude known as Agus, an apparent former advisor to King Cadmus of Thebes. Diana is pleased the warrior princess has arrived so soon since her father's condition is worsening by the minute. Gabrielle arrives as Diana informs a guard to follow all of Xena's orders as if they came from the king himself. When the young bard asks what is going on with Joxer, Xena commands the guard to throw the quote-unquote big mouth idiot in the dungeon. Agus then grabs Xena by the throat without losing his hand. Turns out this is another lookalike known as Meg, who is labeled as a filthy tramp he fished out of the gutter. A whole triforce of Xenas. Excellent. This evil bastard hatches a plan to switch the tramp into playing Diana once Lias dies, so he can seize the throne for himself. All this happens while Meg fumbles around the premises and twirls her chakram on the table like a little child. Great stuff from Lawless. In the dungeon, Gabrielle cannot fathom what her friend is up to. Meg tells the young bard her captivity is all part of the plan. Agus cannot stand Meg calling him Aggie before guaranteeing Xena will not make it to the castle. The next morning, the real Xena makes her way into the same pub Joxer and Gabrielle were in, welcomed by dweebs looking to score. She demolishes them all without breaking a sweat. Safe to say her reputation is restored. Back at the castle, Meg is doing her best Xena impression at a mirror. That's Xena with the capital Z. This episode rules. When Joxer is pushed around by the guard outside, Meg grants permission for the Mighty One to enter. And look at that face. Meg does all she can to escalate things with her new crush, but Joxer states he doesn't deserve to be her lover. What are you doing, stupid? She needs your sword in her service now, she said so herself. Of course he bails. The Mighty One then comes across Princess Diana, thinking it's the same Xena from earlier in a new outfit. Into the dungeon with you! Aggie is proven to be a big fat liar when the real Xena finally arrives to the castle and meets Diana inside, who tearfully says her father is slipping away. When the warrior princess goes to alert Philemon, we find out that Meg has switched outfits as Aggie and his minions hold the real Diana hostage. Back in the dungeon, Gabriella's had enough of this crap, but she can't escape. Meg, now as Diana, arrives to escort Joxer out and plants a big fat kiss on him. She is then called for baby duty, and she hilariously sings 63 bottles of beer on the wall to lull the young child to sleep. It doesn't go well, of course. Meanwhile, the real Xena meets up with Joxer and she senses someone else at play when he brings her up to speed on the situation, after he grabs her rear and eats a haymaker for his troubles. The two hide behind a curtain as Meg and Aggie argue over her fascination with Joxer and Xena making it to the castle when she wasn't supposed to. Gabriella is finally freed by the real Xena, and she finds out the truth about another lookalike at play. On a mission to find Diana, Xena disguises herself as Meg disguised as the princess to trick this lad from earlier, Alcibiades, into escorting her and the bound Gabrielle into the same place holding Diana in captivity. Once he does, Xena destroys Aggis's goons and frees both the young bard and princess. Now desperate, this evil bastard kidnaps the baby. Xena relocates Joxer and is forced to play the role of Meg when Aggis arrives, planting a fat kiss on the Mighty One. His reaction is hysterical. Meanwhile, the real Meg is confronted by a ticked-off Gabrielle. The funny brawl ends with Meg crying for mercy. She says her whole stinking life is her fault, having to be on her own since the tender age of 10. She longs for having a father figure in her life after losing her biological dad while she was being born. Meanwhile, the fake Meg is with Aggis, buying more time by convincing him she should stab King Leus instead of poisoning him. The real Meg is in her thinking chair, as the king returns to the room in physical pain, but in good spirits. He takes the time to comfort who he thinks is his daughter, and you can see how much this means to Meg. Back with Aggis, one of his goons brings the baby over and Joxer ruins the whole charade, forcing Xena and Joxer to sprint back to the king. Aggis and his men take a shortcut, and Meg is asked to kill the king to prove her identity. Meg has finally had enough of this crap, pointing the blade at Aggis's throat long enough for Xena to kick his men around some more. Meg escorts the king to safety shortly before the warrior princess has the tramp cornered at last. Xena, giving Meg props for saving the king, tells her the past is irrelevant and leaves her in charge of Leus for a little while longer. During a story of Meg's past life as a cook, the king suddenly appears lifeless. Aggis's last efforts at the throne involve tying the baby's basket to a chandelier above this bowl of flames. "Not so fast," exclaims Xena. Wait, no, that's Diana. "Hold it right there," exclaims Xena. Sweet, she's ready to split heads with her trusty shamrock. Great line from Meg, but still not who we need. Guess which one I am. Aggis and his boys are screwed, man. The Xena Triforce combines forces with Gabrielle and Joxer to dispatch the goons as the baby is safely caught with a curtain by her mother. But sadly, the king is dead. Wait, he lives? As Xena and Diana speak with Leus, Meg is blessed with Gabrielle's forgiveness and the king's offer to be his personal cook. The episode concludes with Meg telling Joxer the kitchen door will be open, and Xena letting him know she won't wait forever. Such an incredibly entertaining episode. Meg is my favorite of the Xenas, so of course her debut is one of my favorite installments of the season. New fans, go watch this one. Longtime fans, go watch this one again. Intimate Stranger, written by L. Sears and directed again by Jones. November 11th is the day we saw a returning character appear for the first time in Season 2. The God of War, Ares. Initially shape-shifting as Xena's mother Cyrene, Ares is thrilled to welcome Xena back to his fold for executing Callisto. The blonde barbarian then appears begging for a chance to reform, but Xena closes in with her sword. Oh, it was a dream. The flustered warrior princess shakes Gabrielle to wake her up, but it's actually Callisto with contacts! The young bard finally wakes Xena up, telling her it was Callisto who chose her own path. She reminds her if Hercules had treated Xena like Xena treated Callisto, Xena would be dead. And Xena deserves that more than Callisto. Wait, what? The warrior princess finally awakens from the nightmare to the nightmare about the nightmare. I think it's clear that the final events from Return of Callisto have resulted in a lingering sense of guilt. The warrior princess and the bard of Potidia are after Theodorus and anyone else affiliated with the blonde barbarian. These footprints show someone else is also after Theodorus, the mighty one himself. Before Callisto's former lieutenant can split the bound Joxer up, Xena's war cry is heard from outside. With the area clear, Xena cuts Joxer free and he lands on his face, transporting any day back to— oh, wrong season. Gabrielle wraps Xena in a blanket as the warrior princess questions if what happened to Callisto was really justice or not. Before she drifts off for the evening, a voice calls out her name and sure enough, it's the barbarian. Xena approaches her longtime rival and they're both immediately back in Tartarus. Unfortunately, we do not see Charon this time. Damn it. Callisto has grown bored down here and explains that with a little help, that line between the real world and the underworld can disappear. Help from who? The God of War. The blonde and the god continue the mind games on the warrior princess, stressing that letting Callisto die in the quicksand is as bad as murdering her outright. They get Xena to confess she's guilty of murder, leading to a hard Irish whip from Callisto to Xena towards that giant rock. Xena returns to the land of the living and tells Gabrielle they must head to Amphipolis because Callisto is probably after Cyrene. Ares is waiting outside and holy Aphrodite! Welcome back, Callisto. The barbarian has switched bodies with the warrior princess, leaving her longtime enemy inside her body back in Tartarus. What a great twist. Xeno, if you will, discusses her plan to take down Theodorus, and Argo cannot stop neighing. The barbarian princess places the responsibility of killing Callisto on Gabrielle, citing an overwhelming guilt over the quicksand incident. Yep, those two know something's up. Back in Tartarus, Eric Thompson is back as Hades, as he and Callista, if you will, discuss what's going on. Hades is dismissive of her claims until she recounts the final moments of Marcus's life during Mortal Beloved. Shocked that Ares would stoop so low, Hades gives the blonde warrior one day back in the land of the living. That morning, Zeno pushes Gabrielle to tap into that darkness she displayed after Perdiccas' death by asking the young bard to pretend she's really Callisto, the irony, eh? Gabrielle is ready to vomit after striking her, and Zeno attaches Xena's breast dagger onto the young bard's staff. Moments later, the God of War engages in a sparring session with Zeno while warning her of Hades' activity. The barbarian princess promises to deliver Ares an army to rule the world in exchange for satisfaction, and yes, we know how this conversation ends. Zeno then tells Gabrielle to carry on while she has a moment alone with Argo. After taunting the poor horse, oh no. Callista discovers the injured Argo on the ground and uses her superior survival skills to craft a cure. Joxer, under the impression he's really looking at Callisto, asks the blonde warrior to back off. Callista is able to convince Joxer of the truth with the help of her pressure point knowledge. Meanwhile, at Theodorus HQ, Zeno meets face to face with the man himself. Thinking she's really Xena, he refuses to fight with the understanding that she only fights when threatened. But she kills him anyway, and loves every second of it. This lad Grecius launches a new devotion to the supposed Xena, and, against Ares' wishes, she commands the men to invade Amphipolis. As the blonde warrior walks through the woods with the mighty one, she slowly senses an incoming object, and catches it while knocking Joxer out temporarily. Another showdown breaks out between the two ladies, this time in opposite bodies. The visual of both these actresses portraying their opposing roles is a sight to behold, especially when Light performs the Xena war cry. As Callista gains the upper hand, Gabrielle holds her at dagger point. Callista informs the young bard of the impossible, and is convinced after Zeno was unable to correctly answer what Gabrielle has been dreaming about since Perdiccas was killed. The blonde warrior barely saves the young bard from a blade thrown by the barbarian princess as she rides away on a horse. Now reunited with her friends, Callista explains her final plan: use Callisto's own guilt against her. At the town, Zeno is holding the citizens behind bars, including Cyrene. The God of War is angered by the barbarian's actions, but she couldn't care less. You're on your own then, fumes Ares. Suddenly, vases filled with oil are thrown by Joxer and Gabrielle all over the area, causing the soldiers to bounce. With one more war cry from Like, the warriors duke it out once more in front of the citizens of Amphipolis. Callisto begins to fade away during the fight, but is able to harken back to the greater good by tossing a poison dart at Xeno's neck. Back in Tartarus, the barbarian claims she'll never hold any guilt because it was the warrior princess who started this by killing her family. In a wonderful scene reminiscent of Dreamworker, Callisto's mother appears and tells her daughter how much she disapproves of her actions since their incident. Other lost souls gather around her, creating a new wave of guilt. As Callisto's mother proclaims her daughter must pay for her crimes, Xena's body is Irish whipped again to the same rock. Back in Amphipolis, the warrior princess is returned to her own body. Well, at least that's how it was supposed to be initially. In the official airing, Xena remains in the body of her nemesis, but is quick to convince everyone around her of her true identity when she recounts Gabrielle stating the cycle of hate must end with love. The episode ends with Hudson Light portraying Xena for a little while longer thanks to the Leno incident. Footage of the original ending is available with a quick search. Another solid episode with both Lawless and Light giving us memorable moments in their opposing roles. The story continues in 10 Little Warlords, written by Paul Robert Coyle and directed again by Siebert, airing on the 18th. Fans contend this was the Xena Light episode to accommodate Lawless's recovery. Gabrielle is having a lot of trouble getting used to Callisto. Joxer returns with one of 10 scrolls sent to Callisto from the God of War. Callisto detects it wasn't Ares who sent the invitation, leading her to follow the instructions for an explanation. As our two heroines survey warlords in the area, Gabrielle fiercely suggests her friend to gather information by pressure pointing. Callisto suggests for the young bard to relax in the town, while the blonde warrior heads toward the warlords. Gabrielle's aggression increases dramatically as two fishcake salespeople viciously compete for her business. The young bard lands the first punch, instigating a hilarious brawl with several of the townsfolk going at it. Callisto notices much of the aggressiveness coming from innocents, while the warlords maintain zen. See what happens when the God of War takes a holiday? Yes, it's Ares, now mortal and plastered. He explains that someone has stolen his sword, deposing him of his position as the God of War. Without his abilities, he was unable to switch Xena back to her own body. A brief but really funny shot appears of Xeno fluttering in Tartarus, followed up by Ares' cackling like the Joker. I love it. With Gabrielle getting increasingly hostile toward everyone, Ares informs Callisto that the world needs a sitting God of War to restore order with the innocents. Only those who have learned to properly channel their anger, like Xena, are able to stay focused. He makes the deal simple. Help him regain his godhood, she gets her body back. The two snipe this guy for his invitation to gain entry into the ship the next day. Callisto introduces herself to the 8 other warlords by declaring only she will kill Xena. Joxer makes a fool out of himself again, and Callisto continues her illusion by having him pretend he's afraid of her. Ares then has an announcement for the 10 Little Warlords via spinning frisbee, informing them of his impending retirement and need of an heir. The real Ares is disgusted, noting that only he can handle the godhood since he was actually born into it. He also learns the word of the day: hangover. The 10 Little Warlords arrive to this castle, with the perma-aggressive Gabrielle and Joxer not far behind on a boat of their own. Callisto soon recognizes who would stage the sideshow inside this room: King Sisyphus. Indeed it is, played this time by the director himself, Charles Siebert, since Ray Henwood from Death in Chains was unavailable to reprise his role. The king reveals he is the one in possession of Ares' sword and promises it to the warlord who slays the beast looming around the castle, Baracus. In exchange, Sisyphus will be granted immortality. Meanwhile, Gabrielle clocks the mighty one on the shore before hearing the roar of Baracus from the castle. This is the first of many entertaining interactions between the two as they set off to find the beast themselves. Back at the castle, random numbers are drawn to determine the order of warlords going after the beast. Callisto conveniently draws number 1. After a brief melee that results in Ares being wounded, he tells Callisto things may be different if he regains his godhood due to the intense pain he's enduring as a mortal. Right. As the other warlords start killing each other at their door, Callisto and Ares search for his sword. He quips she would make a great goddess of desire at his side, and her response is this warlord's death. Another warlord is wasted before Sisyphus interrupts Callisto and Ares' search. The king knows it is Xena trapped in Callisto's body and brings Ares to the brink of elimination. The blonde warrior flies to his rescue, and he hysterically questions how mortals live day by day. Gabrielle commits grand theft sword before the remaining warlords reunite with Callisto and Ares. 3-on-2 odds quickly dissipate into a fair fight of 2-on-2, while Gabrielle and Joxer manage to locate the Baracus, a giant noise-making facade all along. For the record, the Mighty One slayed it. After some intense back-and-forth action, Callisto and Ares survived the tag team match. With Ares' sword in hand, the blonde warrior is encouraged by Sisyphus to end its owner's life with it. The young bard and the Mighty One finally locate Callisto, letting everyone know Baracus was no monster. For the record, the Mighty One slayed it. The big warlord Virgilius then sneaks up behind Ares, only to be killed by Callisto with the sword. Slowly wielding it in hand once again, the God of War is back. Sisyphus, give my regards to Hades. Remember how Ares said he'd help Xena get her body back if she helped him regain his godhood? He lied. Actually, no he didn't. With a sick whoosh effect, the warrior princess has returned. Lawless is clearly still not 100% here, as we see her walking slowly to conclude the episode, but it does not affect the payoff of seeing her and Gabrielle again after another excellent episode. Like portrays Xena well, and the late Kevin Smith is immensely entertaining as a drunk and mortal Ares. Holiday Time arrived on December 9th with a Solstice Carol, written by Chris Mannheim and directed by John T. Kretschmer. Court is in session with King Silvus dishing out harsh punishments to citizens for celebrating the solstice season. Note you aren't seeing things, the king is indeed portrayed by Peter Veer Jones, one of the many Zeuses over on the legendary Journeys. The king's clerk, Centocles, is ordered to hand out an eviction notice as court adjourns. Our two heroines reach the kingdom on Solstice Eve, with Gabrielle setting the ground rules for their gift giving. Suddenly, a young boy named Lionel runs off with Xena's chakram. They both follow him to an orphanage, where the Solstice spirit is cranked up to 11. As Xena informs the foster parent, Milena, of the situation, Centocles arrives with some of the king's men asking for 1,000 dinars in taxes, or they'll face eviction. Noticing a violation of the prohibition, the men charge ahead, and after Gabrielle pulls Centocles out of the way, Xena grabs the chakram wrapped in ribbons and uses the combination to tie up the soldiers. Milena tells Xena celebrating Solstice is the violation in question, stating anyone who does so can expect to pay a price. When Gabrielle inquires how Centocles could possibly work for the ruthless king, the clerk laments he had to find any work he could after his real trade, toy making, was also outlawed. The young bard gleefully recalls a toy from her childhood that he made, and the clerk also explains why the king hates Solstice so much. His queen, Analia, suddenly passed away on a fateful Solstice Eve 3 decades before. 30 years of holiday celebrations being outlawed. That's gotta suck. Gabrielle convinces Xena of a unique plan to change King Silvus's mind and save the orphans before midnight. No heads split open, no brawling, and no changing anatomies. Unless the plan fails. Xena hesitantly agrees and gives her friend 35 dinars to purchase disguises. While the young bard browses for items in town, a quote-unquote stubborn ass is making life miserable for this guy. Yes.
A donkey.
She is able to save the ass's ass from the tannery by tapping into her godly bargaining skills and purchasing him for all the dinars Xena gave her earlier. Meanwhile, King Silvus is slapped out of his peaceful slumber by Xena after Centocles leads her to his chamber. The warrior princess presses him on his recent actions involving the orphanage. Labeling her as one of those solstice lovers, the king calls for his guards and she warns him of consequences if he doesn't change his ways.
Web swing.
She discovers another chamber filled with cobweb solstice spirit and a giant painting of the king and queen hoisted up above. Back in the town, Gabrielle has named her new donkey Tobias, and at the sound of a whistle from Lionel, she discovers that Tobias can be controlled like Argo. The warrior princess regroups with Centocles, who's restructuring a harsh sentence from the king. He stays firm on his refusal to help the two heroines for fear of being arrested. Gabrielle lightens up the children's evening with the Solstice story as only she can before Xena and Centocles return to the orphanage. The young bard's plan is underway, with the warrior princess posing as the first of the three fates, Callisto. She convinces the king of her powers thanks to Centocles' help and escorts him to the same cobweb chamber from earlier. His queen, portrayed by a suspended Gabrielle, urges the king to change his ways before it's too late. "Great Zeus," remarks Silvus. The irony in that line is delicious. Tobias almost destroys the illusion after a whistle causes him to march forward, sending Gabrielle tumbling down. She whistles the donkey back into place, and after the queen tells her king to forget about her death, we find out from Silvus she actually left him 30 years ago. With a drugged beverage, the king is knocked out before he catches on to their trick. Phase 2 of Gabrielle's plan commences, with Xena now posing as the second fate, Lachesis. She asks the king to dress as a commoner so they can visit the orphanage he's ready to evict. Meanwhile, Gabrielle finds Centocles hiding in his little den. Stating his fear of being locked up in a small space for life, he refuses to help out any further. The young bard calls out this inconsistency, pointing out he's locked up in a small space right now. She then notices a ton of his toy creations and recommends they give them all to the children. We then see the orphans singing their rendition of Solstice Night in front of Silvus, an excellent version of the tune by Joseph LaDuca. Before long, the king has had enough of this crap, but his men threaten to arrest him and the Fate, leading Xena to seal off the orphanage. Silvus passes out again and Milena is encouraged to stay with the king. Centocles and Gabrielle tumble inside through the chimney, exciting the toy maker to do that every year. The origin of Santa, everyone. The guards lift the barricade and attack, but Xena decides to uphold the rule of not splitting heads. Instead, our two heroines use toys and other solstice decorations to fight back. As the holiday battle rages on, the king awakens next to Milena, who poses as the final fate, Atropos. Inside this cold, dark room with the sound of laughter in the air, Silvus refuses his perceived future and finally claims he could change. He could change! He swears it! He could change! The brawl continues with Xena destroying dudes with stocking stuffers and even an action figure of the son of Zeus. Centocles shoots another with a deadly candy cane, and Gabrielle pounds on two more with bells in perfect sync to the holiday tune Jingle Bells. The bard's bell bashing of these guys is my favorite moment of the episode by far. Even the children pitch in with projectiles of their own. The final charge from the soldiers is met head-on by the king himself as he, Xena, Gabrielle, and Centocles knock them silly with the deadliest weapons of all, stuffed animals. After the battle, Milena takes off her hood, and the king is reunited with his queen. 30 years later, Silvus earns her forgiveness in time for Solstice Day. The episode ends with Gabrielle giving Tobias to these newly crowned parents, Xena giving Gabrielle a fresh toy from her childhood, and Xena receiving a gift of her own, Gabrielle herself. Aww. A great addition to anyone's yearly festive holiday viewing. We have made it to 1997. First episode to air on January 13th was the Xena Scrolls, written by the duo of Armus and Foster and directed by Charlie Haskell. It is 1940 in Macedonia, where this lad has found a seemingly valuable fragment. A woman arrives to a tent looking for a trace of humanity. She finds them alright, holding her at gunpoint. That's no way to treat a lady. The camera slowly reveals her rescuer, chasing the bozos off with bullets after they commit the sin of sins, shooting her hats. Seeing O'Connor launch bullets in different directions here is hilarious. The ladies introduce themselves after the shootouts, with Lawless portraying Melinda Pappas and O'Connor portraying Janice Covington, both the daughters of famous and infamous archaeologists. Through her deceased father, Professor Mill, Melinda discovered a telegram from Janice, requesting a translator of ancient scrolls and offers her services. Outside, one of Janus's men is suddenly stabbed and the rest panic, believing it to be a curse from the tomb. It is in this tomb where the most important archaeological find of the century awaits, the Xena Scrolls. Back in the tent, as Melinda correctly translates a scroll fragment for Janus, we see a flashback of Season 1's Callisto. Yep, this is also the clip show of Season 2. Still hesitant to allow Pappas to tag along in her search for the scrolls, an endeavor that began with her father Harry years prior, Janus is interrupted by the French lieutenant known as Jacques Serre. Yes, it's T-Money, the artist formerly known as Ted Raimi. Offering his protection, Jacques says the French government has a vital interest in the scrolls since they may hold the key to ancient powers strong enough to pose a threat to the entire world should they fall into the wrong hands. Like the Nazis. When Covington's integrity is questioned by the Frenchman, Pappas quickly stands up for her before this man, John Smythe, arrives with a tablet that allows access to the tomb. Smythe offers 100,000 American dollars to Janus if she deciphers the key, and she accepts. At the tomb's entrance, Covington claims the tablet is a fake, but Pappas is quick to translate again, opening the door with a switch that seems straight out of Cradle of Hope. Inside, a trap sets off a rock slide, requiring a huge array of stunt folk as each Tomb Raider tumbles down into the darkness. Now separated from Smythe and his men, Janus, Melinda, and Jacques tread onwards with the daughter of Professor Pappas deciphering everything she sees. The words, "Beware the rock of the God of War," sends us to another flashback, this time to the Reckoning. Nice choice. Jacques then argues with Janus about curses being real, with him recounting a time he was on a mission to Egypt for the French Secret Service. A clip from 1932's The Mummy plays, followed by a clip from 1941's The Wolf Man. Both ladies hilariously point out the films, as Jacques stresses they were based on his real-life experiences. Great stuff. Covington warns the other two lads to not touch anything suspicious, but Pappas doesn't listen and causes this trap to damage Janus's hat. As she sits in a timeout for her actions, this tomb door spins and reveals the scrolls. One such piece tells the tale of Xena and Marcus, sending us back to Mortal Beloved, another good choice. Janus is ecstatic to find the scrolls, as her father's life mission has finally been completed. One half of Xena's chakram is also found, and Pappas is the only one able to pull it free. Suddenly, the weapon becomes a magnet and drags Melinda deeper into the tomb. She is led to Smythe and his not-so-glorious bastards, with the leader in possession of the other half. Janus uses her whip to disarm Smythe, and after a
web swing,
she kicks lots of ass, and I love it. Covington's gunshot bounces off the rocks in the tomb, and she runs off with Pappas and Serre to a well-torched room with a sarcophagus. Smythe returns with half a chakram in hand, and the weapon cannot resist being separated any longer. With a funny Shazam from Melinda, Xena's ultimate weapon is back. And so is the God of War, yes. Ares, who was entombed for infinity years, takes great pleasure in causing Smythe's men to shoot one another and launching daggers to his torso. The God of War also reveals that Jacques is actually a salesman from New Jersey named Jack Kleinman, related to none other than Jockster, as another clip from Callisto plays. Ares wants out of the tomb, and only a descendant of Xena can make it happen. It's definitely not Janus he's looking for, who we find out is a descendant of the Bard of Potidaea with the help of Gabrielle 420 clip from Altered States. Her reaction is so great. And then, there was one. Rising like a phoenix, Xena takes over Melinda's body to deny Ares' wish. Running away from the God of War, Xena assures Covington that Gabrielle was no useless tag-along, flashing us back to Hooves and Harlots, is there a doctor in the house, and ties that bind. Ares then holds both Jack and Janus hostage to lure Xena into setting them free with one chakram toss to the eye of Hephaestus. She does toss her weapon, but only to untie the others. Ares deflects the chakram to the eye with his sword, opening the door to freedom. Xena springs between him and the doorway, leading to another incredible fight between these two. Before Ares delivers the final blow, Janice distracts him long enough with her whip for Xena to launch her chakram at the chain of a giant wrecking ball and at the eye once more. The chakram splits in two again, causing Melinda to return with no recollection of the heated battle. Nonetheless, the three lads are able to escape and Ares is entombed for another infinity years. Jack bids farewell to the ladies, and Covington, now with a newfound respect for Pappas, allows her to help load her truck. We then are transported to 50 years later, where Jack's grandson, Ted, is having trouble pitching ideas to Rob until he presents the Xena Scrolls. Yep, that Rob. The executive producer is intrigued with this Xena, and the show's intro cleverly signals this is how the show began. Season 2 is on fire. Here she comes, Miss Amphipolis from January 20th, another episode written by Mannheim and directed by Marina Sargenti. Our two heroines hit the beach to meet our old friend Salmonius, and Gabrielle trips over deep tracks in the sand. And look, Gabrielle found a huge amount of clamshells. Suddenly, dudes looking to score are chasing a bunch of ladies, and Xena fends them off with Gabrielle's shells. Great gag. Salmonius races onto the scene, explaining that the women are contestants in the Miss Known World beauty pageant. Xena is clearly pleased with the thought of seeing quote-unquote underdressed, overdeveloped bimbos perform in such an event. Salmonius explains the leaders who wrote the Treaty of Peace on the land over a year ago, the Doja Messini, the region of Skyros, and the Palatine of Parnassus, have each entered their ladies into the contest, and there's been nothing but trouble since. Unable to cancel the contest, and sensing an impending war, Salmonius has summoned the two heroines to keep things leveled by using one of them as an undercover contestant. Everyone, meet Miss Amphipolis. Sal makes it clear that missing any of the three pageant events will result in an automatic disqualification. I wonder who this is. Gabrielle, posing as Miss Amphipolis' sponsor, the Marquesa, accompanies her as she meets fellow contestant Miss Messini, with a crossbow rigged directly above her. One chakram toss negates the threat to her life and their cover. The three leaders expel their displeasure with the contestants' near-fatal incident to the sponsor of the event, Lord Claron. The Marquesa arrives during their argument and lays a verbal smackdown on their candy asses. Meanwhile, Miss Amphipolis is getting acquainted with the other contestants in a steam room, noticing brutal marks on one of them. When the other ladies leave, she is suddenly trapped, and Salmonius grows desperate for Gabrielle to find her before he heads off for MC duties. The first event is on, with this contestant Xena noticed earlier, known as Miss Artifice, among the many to walk the stage. At the last second, Miss Amphipolis makes it to the stage, and she is pretty, SpongeBob. While she proves to be a big hit with the audience, someone sneaks into her room and steals Xena's trademark outfit. Look at how Salmonius follows her off the stage. With a familiar piece of jewelry in hand, Miss Amp knows her near DQ was no accident. It was Artifice, who is revealed to be a lad not born a lady. Longing for a chance to use a part of him typically laughed at by others, Xena realizes how much this means to him and assures the secret is safe with her. The leaders threaten to call on their respective armies if there's another incident endangering their ladies. The second event sees MC Salmonius introducing each contestant's background, with Miss Amp hilariously being noted for doing volunteer work with her local Hestian virgins. The Palatine of Parnassus kills the excitement by claiming Miss Amp is actually Xena. Miss Artifice saves the day by appearing in Xena's outfit to the enjoyment of the audience. The 5 semi-finalists are announced, all of the 3 leaders as women, of course, Artifice and Amphipolis. Threatening to use their armed forces again, the Mark takes the 3 disgruntled leaders back to the Smackdown Hotel, telling them to shut up and celebrate the peace. Refusing to sing for the talent show as the third event, Xena decides to rely on her sword skills. While practicing, she hears Miss Messini crying in the distance. The contestant explains she thinks the whole contest is a crock, an opinion shared by the other competitors. The only thing keeping him in the race for Miss Known World is the desire to avoid added hardship from another war. Xena encourages her to tell her sponsor how she feels, since he actually cares for her. The final event is on in an unusual rush, thanks to Lord Claron. That thing looks unstable, doesn't it? Miss Amphipolis flips over to Miss Skyros during her snake charming deal and saves her from the falling beam in style. As the leaders are taken out by somebody, Miss Amp meets Clairon backstage, and the plot thickens. He confesses his involvement with every near-fatal incident so he could begin profiting from war like the good old days. Revealing the three leaders in captivity beneath them, Miss Amphipolis dismantles the sabotaging bastard as only Xena can. Don't hate her because she's beautiful. With the culprit now restrained, the judges are ready to crown a winner. Miss Amphipolis wins! No wait, Xena withdrew from the competition. And so do 3 other semi-finalists, thanks to Xena's wisdom throughout the contest, leaving us with the new Miss Known World, Miss Artifice. The episode is sealed with a kiss that totally ticks off Gabrielle and possibly half the fanbase. Although Salmonius would make more appearances on the legendary journeys, this was actually the final time the character appeared on this show, but not without his hilarious facial expressions. And at least we got to see Trevor one more time in another role during Season 4, an episode I've already covered on the channel. The crew pays tribute to Mannheim's brother Keith in the end credits, an inspiration behind the Artifice character. And then things got real with the debut of Destiny, written by the duo of Stuart and Elle Sears and directed by the executive producer himself. After directing on Hercules 1 year prior, Robert Tappert made his directorial debut on Xena in the episode airing on January 27th. In an episode centered around the idea of finding out why Xena went so meana, our 2 heroines pay a visit to Callisto's hometown of Sierra. The warrior princess forges ahead alone, with ugly flashbacks to the time her army invaded the town. Young Callisto asks, "Why?" And it becomes too much for Xena. Then, the young bard is once again held captive by the children of the corn, sun. As the leaders ask the yellow dwarf above for a sign, Xena drops in and has nothing but bad news. The fight ensues, leading to another thrilling battle with the captives being set free by a chakram toss. The heroines temporarily reunite before the supposed retreating children confront Xena again. This time, one of the girls who was held captive stays and observes the scuffle. After a tremendous seated senton from the trees, the girl approaches Xena with a giant log swinging straight at them. The warrior princess pushes her out of the way, but is unable to avoid the log herself. No 10 count necessary. Xena is out. As the leader attempts to take advantage, he is denied by Gabrielle's staff while she takes a blade to the leg at the same time. Now a bloody mess, the severely weakened Xena asks Gabrielle to escort her to Mount Nestus before collapsing. 10 winters ago, Xena is warning anyone who opposes her army or Amphipolis will pay a terrible price. Turns out she was once a pirate with her own ship and crew who have taken this lad hostage. It's none other than Julius Caesar, played by the returning Karl Urban, who absolutely nails this role. Witnessing the beating he endures due to his quick lip, Xena prevents his death when she notes he is a Roman nobleman. She urges her comrade Lycerius to issue a $1,000 dinar ransom demand to the Romans for the nobleman. It's this moment where he introduces himself, James Bond style. Caesar. Julius Caesar. Nice touch. As this flashback progresses, Gabrielle is having a heck of a time getting Xena to Mount Nestus with her bum leg. A stowaway lands in Captain Xena's ship and kicks loads of ass with an arsenal of moves that are all too familiar, including pressure points to the pirate of Amphipolis' leg. Great fight scene here on the boat. The stowaway is eventually restrained and revealed to be a young lady. Xena decides against her death by having her agree to teach her the pressure point technique, despite their language barrier. Caesar affirms his fate to conquer the world and notes every big event is all part of a great plan, a tapestry known as Destiny. Xena invites him for dinner in her cabin after she learns how to pressure point with the stowaway, who has a familiar design on her shirt. The way they each tease letting the other die is intense. Once Xena learns the technique, it's sexy time. Xena and Caesar exchange their respective whys in life, with the pirate looting and raiding to protect Amphipolis, and the nobleman possessing the desire to be great. Xena offers to join forces with them to conquer planet Oit, and they seal it with a kiss. The Romans arrive on a beach and hand Xena a huge sum of gold in exchange for Caesar, who promises he'll be back. The following montage of Xena and her crew setting sail is accompanied by an extremely captivating underscore from LaDuca that actually earned him an Emmy nomination. One of the most incredible songs of the show's run in an awesome scene. Xena then spots a ship on the horizon, and despite hesitation from the young lady, they sail towards it. As he promised, Caesar is back. To Smeckledorf Xena. The Romans dismantle her crew and crucify Xena at Caesar's command. Break her legs, utters the Roman leader. Lawless's legitimate brother, Daniel Ryan, does the honors as one of the Roman guards. Back to the future. Gabrielle is running on fumes, but carries on with Xena's condition getting worse. The flashback resumes with a hooded fellow kicking Roman guard ass and helping Xena escape. Caesar declares war on the Roman political structure and demands Xena's lifeless body brought back to him. The young lady brings Xena to a healer named Niclio, who snaps Xena's legs back into place. Yes, that's Dreamworker cast member Nathaniel Lees. At the same time, Gabrielle has also brought Xena to Niclio, but the warrior princess asks him to let her go. What? Past Niclio introduces the young lady's name, Malila, who says it wasn't Xena's time to die yet. A deeper respect between the two is clear despite Malila's Gaelic tongue. Before Xena can answer her new friend's question of feeling any anger towards Caesar, Roman forces barge through the door. Malila valiantly fights them off before this lad shoots his crossbow at Xena. Oh no. The warrior princess theme from Hercules erupts in the background as Xena viciously goes after the remaining soldiers. As she is clocking these lads in the past, her pulse is fading in the future. In conjunction with her big moment of becoming the evil Xena we would see in season 1 of Hercules in the past, she actually dies in the future with the heartbroken Gabrielle begging her to wake up, exactly like Xena did in the Doctor episode. Her soul is transported to this dimension where she reunites with Malila. Now communicating in English telepathically, Malila urges her friend to continue fighting evil back on Oit, and the warrior princess hears the young bard's commands to fight, with a montage of their relationship shown on screen. A cliffhanger ends this superb episode after Xena confirms she must go back. The Quest, written by L. Sears, in collaboration with Mannheim and Stewart, and directed by Michael Levine, concluded this two-part saga as the first episode to air in February on the 3rd. R.J. Stewart contends this was the Xenolite episode after the Leno incident. Gabrielle frantically awakens from a nightmare, but there is no waking up from the reality of her friend being dead. Rock is impeccable in the opening seconds. The next day, the young bard is met by warlords eager to cash in on the dead body of the warrior princess. Gabrielle is having none of this crap and begins a melee. Now having made an enemy, are you ready for it, Gabrielle? Iolaus joins the fight and helps Gabrielle clear out the greedy goons. The happy times don't last long, however, as Gabrielle breaks down in tears while hugging her friend from the legendary journeys. Iolaus is understandably crushed by the news as he stands alongside Gabrielle at Xena's sarcophagus. As she regrets not telling Xena how much she loves her for all the life lessons, the Golden Hunter assures her she just expressed that to her friend. Gabrielle sets off to escort Xena's body back to Amphipolis to be buried next to Lycius, while Iolaus sets off to reunite with Hercules. Great to see Michael Hurst make an appearance here, as he and O'Connor deliver an excellent crossover scene. If only we got an episode on either show exclusively centered around these two back then. But I digress. As Gabrielle continues with the sarcophagus alongside Argo, her Amazon sisters return to offer their condolences, including Ifni. This chick is cool. Joining them is a new Amazon named Valaska, played by Melinda Clarke. She joined after she challenged Queen Melosa for her title, and won. But she isn't the queen yet, since Gabrielle has a claim to that title for her actions at the beginning of Thieves and Harlots. Valaska offers a traditional funeral fire to honor Xena, and Gabrielle agrees to reunite with her sisters for a while to think it over. Millions of miles away, a temple housing the dagger of Helios is being witnessed by this strange hooded fellow who sounds familiar. Using this string to cause the dagger's stand to fall, we soon discover that it's the King of Thieves performing another heist. This marks Autolycus' first and only appearance in Season 2. The guards order everyone to evacuate the premises and lock the dagger inside this closet. The king lives up to his name and easily picks the lock to gather the dagger. As he winds up for his escape, Xena's war cry whooshes through the air and Autolycus loses control of his limbs. Whoever is behind this demands him to take this little book before finally letting him leave. Back on Amazon turf, Efni discusses Valaska's upbringing with Gabrielle, revealing Melosa had adopted her after her biological mother was killed by centaurs. Now motivated by revenge, Valaska is determined to conquer Centaur land, and Efni wants none of that crap being a mother of a centaur son. Only Gabrielle can stop an impending war by becoming queen herself. Meanwhile, Autolycus continues losing his mind, and he can't even get drunk over his situation. Xena's voice fills his head, explaining she needs him sober so she could steal her body from the Amazons before they burn it. He really thinks he's gone mad before noticing Xena's reflection inside this barrel of water. With her energy limited, the warrior princess lays down the plan. Use a map hidden in that little book from earlier and the dagger of Helios to gather ambrosia, the food of the gods that will help Xena reunite with her body. Back in Amazon country, Gabrielle informs Efni to proceed with the pyre and decides to accept her new role after she returns from Amphipolis to bury Xena's ashes. And then Autolycus invades their turf dressed as one of them. This covert strategy makes me laugh every time I see it. He notices who the guards are, and as the ceremony is underway, he works his magic. The spectacular-looking Amazon princess proudly displays the queen's mask, but before she can put it on, Valaska launches a dagger straight at it. Melosa's conqueror vehemently protests, causing Gabrielle to surrender the mask at the last moment. Psych! Behold, Gabrielle, queen of the Amazons. Way to go, you. The new queen pays her friend a visit in another incredible scene where O'Connor shows how great she really was for this role. Confident she'll reunite with Xena soon, Gabrielle places the chakram on top of the sarcophagus. Suddenly, the King of Thieves appears and prepares for Operation Steal Xena's body. The queen puts a halt to that and sends Autolycus to jail. He manages to escape as the funeral begins, but he's too late. Or is he? The warrior princess springs into action inside Autolycus' body. Bruce Campbell does his best war cry impression and battles the Amazons before whistling for Argo in one quick swoop. Gabrielle is slowly convinced it is indeed her friend inside the King of Thieves. One chakram toss to these archers' weapons later, Autolycus hops onto Argo and steals the sarcophagus with Xena's whip. Gabrielle hops along for the ride and Valaska calls for her head. Efni declines a direct order from Valaska, causing her to be thrown in jail with her other supporters. In the woods, Gabrielle desperately asks Autolycus for Xena to appear. The warrior princess takes control of his body again and calmly asks the queen to close her eyes. Look, Xena's not dead! Gabrielle asks Xena why she left, and the response is, Holy Aphrodite! Oh, the hell! This shot, right here, to me, is the most beautiful shot of the series. Magnificent! Xena tells Autolycus to get rid of the sarcophagus, and Gabrielle volunteers to have it flow down a river for pickup later. The map soon leads him to the Hall of Ambrosia, and the king notices an oddly shaped rock above. Xena's voice grows faint and Valaska assumes the role of party pooper. Now with the warrior princess out of his body completely, Melosa's would-be successor displays her kinky side to Autolycus. She likes pain and what it makes people do. She really does. After more punishment, she notices the dagger of Helios inside the king's boots, bringing her one step closer towards her new goal, godhood. Autolycus is sent to jail where Gabrielle, Efni, and the rest of her sisters are. Using a lockpick from there, Autolycus breaks them out after the queen causes a distraction. Efni is sent to bring the sarcophagus to the Hall of Ambrosia, where Valaska is slowly ascending towards the odd rock. Gabrielle and Autolycus are not far behind, and at the most opportune time, Xena takes over the body of the queen. Good gods, that's badass. After a chakram toss to Velasca's vine, it's O'Connor's turn to do her best Warcry impression as Gabriella, if you will, hops onto a vine herself. The two Amazons battle fiercely before Velasca is able to insert the dagger on the rock and catch a giant piece of ambrosia. Gabriella hops onto Velasca's vine and shakes it, causing her to drop the ambrosia, which bounces off Gabrielle before heading into the fire. The fight resumes, and this time, Velasca meets her doom. Ethne brings the sarcophagus as requested, and thanks to a small piece of ambrosia lodged inside there, Xena is fed that piece and slowly comes back to life. Sweet. However, another surviving piece of the ambrosia falls from above, and someone isn't quite did enough. The episode ends with Xena owing Autolycus a favor and promising Gabrielle to never die on her again. We'll see about that. Another one of Season 2's finest offerings with an excellent mix of comedy and drama. A must-watch. A Necessary Evil, written by Robert Coyle and directed by Mark Beasley, aired a week later. Gabrielle does what's good for Amazon business by handing over the Queen's mask to Ethne. Suddenly, a shriek fills the air. Velasca is not quite did enough and consumes the final piece of ambrosia. Nice context. Velasca becomes a goddess, with her only mission now being to eradicate our Bard of Bodhidia. Ethne commands her sisters to attack, but she really shouldn't have. When Velasca temporarily loses energy, the survivors escape, but the new goddess reminds Gabrielle she cannot hide from a god. The survivors retreat to this cave with tons injured, including Xena. As the warrior princess asks Ethne for her and the Amazons to buy some time, she pops her dislocated arm back into place with this rock. Funny and badass. The jet black haired heroine determines they'll need an immortal to fight an immortal, shifting us to a familiar voice playing with a big freaking hairy rat. Callisto, trapped here inside the Labyrinth of the Gods by Hercules at the conclusion of Season 3's surprise from the legendary journeys, also became immortal during their encounter. That episode is also a must-watch. Sorbo and Like play off of each other real well. Time has passed and Callisto has gone mad in captivity, slicing up that good little Hercules. Gabrielle is having none of this crap, still reeling from what Callisto did to her husband. With no time to find the son of Zeus instead, Xena stays firm on finding her longtime rival. That evening, Velasca continues her search for the young bard and comes across Amazons who are once against her, offering Ethne as a sacrifice. The goddess reaches out for Sister Solari's sword, only to fall right into their trap. One backflip later, Ethne and the others retreat as Velasca catches on to them buying time for Gabrielle. The next morning, our two heroines arrive to the labyrinth and Xena descends inside by rope. Surprise! The blonde barbarian is here. How would you like to spend eternity in 5 pieces? The barbarian agrees to hear the princess out, with Xena saying she knows who possesses a supply of ambrosia and promises Callisto a shot at the food of the gods if they work together. The intense reunion between Callisto and Gabrielle involves a quick reminder of the barbarian's immortality by her own hand. Nothing can hurt her now, except being cut to pieces. Callisto requests a quick favor before fulfilling the mission, having Xena confess her actions years ago in Syra to the public. For a moment, that innocent young girl seemingly returns as the confession ends. Velasca's rage toward everything Amazon-related is punctuated with a visit to the Temple of Artemis, goddess of the Amazons, which she easily destroys. Xena, Gabrielle, and Callisto arrive to a canyon with rocks perfectly set up for an ambush above. After the barbarian briefly taunts the young bard some more, the goddess arrives and senses each of their heartbeats. Callisto snatches the chakram and tosses it to the rocks before negotiating an alliance with Velasca. Smeckledorfed! Xena and Gabrielle distract the goddess by dodging her reckless lightning bolts, zapping her energy fast. Angered that Velasca doesn't recognize their strategy, she pushes the goddess down and is temporarily knocked out by a lightning bolt. After a vicious sword battle, Velasca sets Xena up for a chokeslam, but Callisto intervenes with the sleeper hold. The Barbarian takes that shot earlier personally, inciting a 2-on-1 handicap match with the bitter rivals working together, still a surreal visual to witness. The two heroines then launch the respective projectiles at the rocks, and Velasca is successfully crushed. But those rocks won't hold her for long, as she has grown even stronger during Xena's public confession. At a campfire, Callisto and Gabrielle play Truth or Dare, and it doesn't go well for the young bard. Xena reveals she knew Callisto would attempt to side with Velasca, and acted accordingly to the barbarian's amazement. The next plan is to use Gabrielle as bait to lure the goddess into a lava pit. The next day, Velasca shapeshifts into a lightnado to consume Gabrielle whole. The warrior princess uses the momentum of the wind and a staff to rescue the young bard. The winds dissipate, but the pyrotechnics begin. With Callisto spoiling for a fight, Xena tells her to go to the other side of the ruins to find the lava with a bridge over it. Remember, after this is over, Callisto will be a god. Unless Xena's plan to cut the bridge with the two immortals fighting on it goes smoothly. At the bridgeless bridge, Xena is bolted onto some rocks near the lava, and Velasca has 5 minutes alone with Gabrielle. Before she is able to end the young bard mortal style, the goddess is interrupted by the ambrosia-hungry barbarian. The food of the gods is snatched by Gabrielle, who is then kicked into the danger zone. Callisto frantically demands the ambrosia from the young bard, and Xena tells Gabrielle to comply. Here comes trouble. These 3 words begin a killer light show between the two goddesses. While they battle fiercely on the bridge, the warrior princess cuts the ropes holding the two goddesses in place, and swan dives with another piece of rope tied to her side in time to catch Gabrielle. Looks like they'll have to take the long route to escape now, as the two goddesses are forever bronzed down below. Another solid episode that unintentionally marked the final appearance of Velasca. Waking up, our two heroines are ambushed by goons as the sun rises. Xena fights back with pots and pans while Gabrielle takes water to the face as a wake-up call. Great action. Using a pan as the chakram, Xena saves her friend from overwhelming odds, but all Gabrielle is concerned with is the condition of her pan. The final goon is hit by pressure pointing, quickly interrupting Xena's typical 30-second warning since he already knows about it. Zagreus, the leading warlord, sent the men to attack them so they wouldn't interfere with his plans to loot the little village of Piedmont. As he explains this, Gabrielle is still fuming about her frying pan. Finding your way, Xena uncharacteristically has no idea where to go to find Piedmont, instigating an argument between the heroines reminiscent of every married couple ever. Right on cue, this lad named Howard calls for help when a giant threatens to crush his village of Laurel. So now we have 2 villages in danger. Making a decision. Gabrielle outlines pros and cons to saving each village, but Xena decides with a coin toss. The giant is first. As Howard leads the way, Gabrielle brings up her frying pan again and Xena doesn't want to hear it, playfully kicking her as they walk off. Indeed, this was a radically different episode than anything else up until now. A truly hilarious mockumentary, Xena style. A Day in the Life written by Stewart, aired on February 17th. Who directed it? Aeolus! Mr. Hurst's first directorial episode on The Girls Show. By default, this episode rocks. Traveling. The heroines play a game of Who Am I pertaining to a male warlord Xena has killed as Howard's infatuation with the warrior princess grows. Gabrielle then comes close to catching Xena off guard with her staff. The mind games they play with each other in simple moments like these throughout the episode are fantastic. Howard says he doesn't know how big the giant is since the threat to Laurel was sent through a messenger. The interaction is interrupted by Xena's stomach after having no breakfast that morning. Wonder why that is. Only one activity can help feed her. Noodling! The warrior princess notices horse tracks up ahead before tossing an eel and fish at the young bard. O'Connor actually endured quite a bit of fish tossed at her behind the scenes at Hurst's request. The blooper reel showcasing this is legendary. As he gathers some firewood, Howard has officially fallen in love with Xena. I then cackle uncontrollably at the sight of Gabrielle using the chakram to chop this fish. Sweet revenge for the frying pan, warrior princess. Now 2 hours away from Laurel, Xena tells her latest admirer to send Zagreus a message. She won't get in his way if he stays out of hers. A call from nature! Gabrielle is barding away about the events from Girls Just Wanna Have Fun with Argo as Xena relieves herself in the bushes. Uh-oh.
You used my scrolls!
Well, at least they didn't have much writing on them. The ground shakes, indicating the giant is near. Given directions. Gabrielle uses a sign to lure the giant away from civilization. To the giant's burial ground. On the way, the heroines arrive to Laurel, a place that looks straight out of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The town is devoid of humanity until a woman appears wrestling a goat. This is Minya, Xena's first superfan who is strong as a bull and can read. Allison Wall does an excellent job portraying how a typical superfan of Xena's would react to seeing Lawless in person. She also gives Gabrielle the Aeolus treatment, not knowing who she is at all. Wonder who's behind that one. Minya explains everyone except her boyfriend Howard ran for the hills after the giant's threat. When Minya asks what she can do to help Xena concentrate, we witness the first of many hot tub scenes between our two heroines. Thank you, Mr. Tappert. Gabrielle recalls a strategy from the giant killer to defeat the latest giant, and the ladies have a water war. Great stuff. Howard returns as Minya gathers some mirrors, but is quickly distracted by slow-motion hair Xena flip action. The warrior princess accurately depicts Zagreus' response to her first message and sends Howard to deliver another one. Take Piedmont if you want, but not Laurel. Gabrielle then offers a trade for Minya's frying pan. Practice makes perfect. Xena has achieved Zen, thwarting another one of Gabrielle's futile attempts to catch her off guard. The young bard also loses the game of Who Am I via technical knockout. The warlord in question was Theodorus, who was killed by Callisto in Xena's body. Turns out Gabrielle traded away Xena's whip for the frying pan, and the warrior princess is not amused. Xena says yo to Howard and figures out Zagreus is on the way before Howard tells the full story. She also notices a giant boot print on the ground, and that big bastard crushed Sonic the Hedgehog. The warrior princess figures it can only be one giant. Gareth, the same giant who killed Goliath's family. Back in Laurel, Gabrielle shares some scrolls with Minya before Xena and Howard return with the news. Because of incoming rain clouds out west, the sunshine off the mirror strategy will be ineffective this time. Only lightning bolts can solve this problem. Trial and error. A flippin' kite, the world's first kite that will attract lightning to defeat the giant. Once it actually flies, that is. Hey, it's flying! As Gabrielle fumbles around with the kite, Xena tells Howard he has a snowball's chance in Tartarus with her. You'll come around, replies Howard. Back outside, Gabrielle misses a crossbody from a rooftop on Xena and fails to knock some sense into Howard. However, Minya has a conversation with the warrior princess and off she goes in excitement. More earthquakes occur, with Xena realizing her plan to lure Zagreus and the giant together has worked. Waiting for Gareth. The warrior princess fights boredom by casually tossing her chakram around. Hysterical. Zagreus suddenly enters the town, distraught over the giant crushing his entire army. As Xena readies her chakram, the new and improved Minya comes to the rescue. One palm strike to the face takes the warlord down, and Howard finally sees the light. The couple live happily ever after, but we still have a giant on the loose. Climbing up this tree, Xena captures Garrett's attention. She ties the rope of the kite to his back and lures him to the giant's burial ground. As the chase continues, the clouds come together and a thunderstorm breaks out. Goliath says hello, quips Xena, as lightning hits the kite and cooks the giant. Going to Bede. The two heroines are admiring the starry sky, and wow! Gabrielle actually caught Xena off guard. Way to go, you. The young bard seals her supreme victory with the Holy Aphrodite. Another classic, and a surefire candidate for the proverbial Best Episode of the Series award, proving to be immensely popular among fans to this day. It wouldn't be the last we'd see of Allison Wall, and after her stellar performance here, that's a good thing. Yo, T-Money time! For Him the Bell Tolls, written by the duo of Armisen Foster and directed by Becker, was the final episode in February, debuting on the 24th. According to Tappert, this was the Xena Light episode after the Leno incident. At the sudden request of King Lias, Xena must head back to his kingdom for a few days without Gabrielle. What to do, what to do? Meanwhile, Joxer is busy slashing his sword at nothing, setting up the perfect opportunity for a reunion between him and Gabrielle. The Mighty One proposes an alliance, but instead, Gabrielle tricks him into guarding the rear as far away from her as possible. The way he runs inside the bulk of that Joxer outfit is a trip.
Holy Aphrodite! It's Aphrodite!
Alexandra Tidings makes her Xena debut as the goddess of love is angrily looking for her son. Yo mom, what up? This guy is brilliant. Cupid's mother is flustered over his gooey love thing being cast on a couple with differing royal ties, Princess Iliandra and Prince Sarpedon. A marriage between the two would not only cause their fathers to unite their kingdoms, but also destroy Aphrodite's temples at their border. The goddess of love threatens to start a jealousy rage with an accomplice who doesn't even need to qualify as a hero. Cupid adds fuel to the fire by saying he'll believe it when he sees it. Get ready, Joxer, it's your lucky day! The goddess of love works her magic as she asks the Mighty One to take this little bell over to Princess Iliandra as a gift. Meanwhile, Gabrielle notices maidens in distress and takes action. When the odds stack up, a little ring from this bell in Aphrodite's hand triggers an athletic lad handspringing his way to the rescue. In a homage to the court jester film from 1955, the goddess's spell on Joxer turns him into a badass whenever he hears the bell. The super Mighty One tears apart the old Joxer outfit and gracefully slashes down the goons. He also borrows a maneuver from Aeolus, where he lands on their shoulders and clobbers them repeatedly in the face before the inevitable Frankensteiner! The maidens are in complete awe, including Princess Iliandra. The badass Joxer hands over the bell from Aphrodite, but a quick ring reactivates the bumbling Joxer. The princess asks Gabrielle and her savior to accompany her and the maidens back to Pyros, where Prince Sarpedon awaits. The two kings, Linnaeus and Barris, propose a toast to their kingdoms uniting and the destruction of Aphrodite's pesky temples. When it seems Cupid is winning the wager with his mother, one of the maidens reports the princess was in the arms of a warrior named Joxer. Lust versus love is still on. Meanwhile, the couple is reunited and Joxer wishes he could have a happy ending for once. As he and Gabrielle discuss his warrior haze, Aphrodite pulls him aside and tells him to help the royal couple get home to safety while ringing her bell again. Badass Joxer returns, complying with the goddess of love in a heartbeat. As the prince brings the princess to a priest near a lake, the super Mighty One intervenes and captures her heart again. When Gabrielle catches up, the princess falls into Joxer's arms and he kisses her in front of everyone. The prince fights for her hand in marriage with passion, but not nearly enough skill to defeat the super Mighty One. At least until Sarpedon grabs the bell around Iliandra's neck and rings it, switching Joxer back to not so super mighty mode. In his brief return, Joxer tosses the bell back to Sarpedon and reverts back to being super mighty. He is able to get the prince to surrender after another exchange, handing the bell back to the princess. That sucks, laments Cupid, and Gabrielle agrees. The young bard attempts to keep Joxer and Iliandra off of each other as she works to find out what in Tartarus is going on. The prince relays the news to his father, but stops him from unleashing a response with his armed forces, since the princess willingly made her choice. When Sarpedon leaves, Linnaeus orders his men to search for Joxer. Meanwhile, Gabrielle is with the lustful couple in a cave and they cannot help themselves. Her squirting water at them only enhances their passion. Hilarious scene. The next morning, Linnaeus' men approach the cave and Joxer sets out to fight them without a second thought. As he proudly stands his ground over his recent actions, the two ladies run to the scene and, you guessed it, the bell rings, bringing bumbling Joxer back temporarily before he faints at the sight of the army. The three are arrested, with Joxer sentenced to execution. When Gabrielle cross-examines Joxer, he recalls seeing Aphrodite, and that's all the young bard needed. As he is left alone, Joxer sings his own theme song. Little did T-Money know how many times he'd be requested to sing this at several conventions down the line. Meanwhile, King Barris receives word that King Linnaeus has kidnapped his daughter. Gabrielle arrives to a temple of Aphrodite and pleads for the spell to be lifted. Aphrodite refuses, since listening to a mortal would plummet her goddess stock. Fortunately, the young bard strikes a deal with Cupid for him to help return things to normal if she is able to cause Aphrodite to change her mind. As Joxer's head is about to be chopped off, Gabrielle arrives to ricochet a rock off the walls to ring this bell, reactivating the Super Mighty One. Badass Joxer toys with the king's forces with his superior skills, causing the king to challenge him personally. Both fight to a standstill, but Joxer has another surprise. He had been fighting with his weaker hand. Now right-handed, he dominates and welcomes the king's reinforcements to make the fight more interesting. Gabrielle tells him to take the fight to the temple of Aphrodite, and he obliges with a kiss and smooth words. That moment when she momentarily swoons over makes me laugh every time. Into the temple we go, with the combatants inadvertently destroying precious items around them. The goddess of love maintains the spell for a while, but finally gives up when the young bard threatens to take the Super Mighty One on a tour to her other temples. The prince and princess thank Gabrielle for her help, but Joxer is left depressed. Xena returns from her trip and tells Joxer the gods can't give people what isn't already in their hearts. She lifts his spirits by telling him he has the heart of a lion, and he sings his theme song once more to close the episode. Another great episode from start to finish. Now sing it, everyone. Joxer the mighty roams through the countryside. He never needs a place to hide, with Gabby as a sidekick, fighting with her little stick, righting wrongs and saying. Another character from Season 1 returns in The Execution, written by Robert Coyle and directed by Garth Maxwell. This would air after a short hiatus on April 7th. Meleager the Mighty, played once more by Tim Thomerson, has sent for Gabrielle in this exact village. As she gleefully bards about the events from the prodigal to Xena, a fight against drunken bastards breaks out at the mere sound of Meleager's name. After the fun battle, the heroines infiltrate a courtroom, and Gabrielle is dealt with a harsh reality. Judge Arbus, known for being fair and just, finds Meleager guilty of murder, and his punishment is death by hanging at one turn of this sand glass. At the mighty cell, the young bard refuses to believe he would commit such an act. Meleager says the encounter in question took place the previous winter, not even knowing who the murdered individual was at the time. Xena decides to investigate across town to be absolutely sure, a town so stoked to witness Meleager's execution. Xena presents her case for Meleager to Arbus, but the judge stands firm on his ruling thanks to this lady's eyewitness account of the murdered individual stumbling to the ground and Meleager holding a bloody sword. Withholding the information from her friend, Xena asks the young bard to stay with Meleager as long as she can before time is up. Shocked at Xena doubting his innocence, Gabrielle dashes back to the cell and distracts the guards with Meleager's last meal and lots of wine. With all of them plastered, she grabs the keys and sends him to find the one-eyed lad who was present with Meleager that fateful winter. Unfortunately, there was one guard left. A riot breaks out in the town square with the citizens desperately wanting Gabrielle's head. The warrior princess jumps in and strikes a deal with the judge to personally bring Meleager back. The mighty has headed north with the two heroines not far behind. Gabrielle screams for Meleager to run and even stands in Xena's way as he heads deep into the woods. With a backflip over the young bard, the chase is on. The warrior princess eventually reaches the mighty and the two duke it out without their swords. I like this battle a lot. Xena tells Meleager that Gabrielle will suffer dire consequences if she doesn't take him back to the town. He quickly confesses his guilt when the young bard arrives, stating the one-eyed man was made up to hide the fact that he had relapsed that night, the same drinking habit she helped him squash in Potadia. In his drunken stupor, the mighty killed a lad who rushed after him, presumably under the impression Meleager wanted to rob him. Gabrielle is crushed and refuses to talk to Meleager until Xena points out the guilt she'll have if she doesn't do it before his execution. The three heroes head back into town the next morning while Meleager continues to recall what happened, mentioning he woke up in a cave with the sword beside him. Suddenly, Xena remembers key features of the man who was murdered, and one of the judge's archers shoots arrows at the mighty. The warrior princess catches them with her hands and teeth and subdues the archer. Gabrielle's faith in his innocence is redeemed in that same cave when Xena holds the sword and reveals she was the real killer. While Gabrielle was at the academy in season 1, Xena encountered the big lad and stabbed him with his own sword. However, he still had enough strength to run away with his weapon lodged inside him, surely to the pub where Meleager was. Xena also remembers a little guy who was being threatened before the murder, heading off to take his carcass to Arbus. Back in the town, the executioner has arrived and the judge goes with his men in search of Xena. Meanwhile, she finds the terrified guy from that night and he reveals the judge is beyond corrupt, killing innocents for the sake of maintaining his fake reputation. Back in the cave, Meleager has Gabrielle write his will and testament, delegating all his belongings to her since she's the closest thing he's ever had to a daughter. But crap, those bastards found them. Now with Gabrielle and Meleager back in his original cell, the final preparations are carried out as the last grains of sand fall. To make matters worse, this wuss bails out. However, his testimony on the judge's real nature proves to be correct, as Arbus is now in a rush to execute Meleager. The young bard is forced to watch the execution from the cell in tears. When his body is taken back inside, Meleager rises like the Undertaker and tricks Arbus into admitting the truth. Xena, hiding under the executioner's cloak, tells everyone she caught Meleager on her shoulders underneath the floorboards as he was released to his supposed death. Arbus is tossed in the slammer and Gabrielle rejoices with her two dear friends as the episode concludes. Yet another episode from the season I really enjoy. Unfortunately, this would be Meleager's final appearance in the series. Blind Faith, another episode concocted by the trio of Armas, Foster, and Becker, aired a week later. Gabrielle is in the mood for bargain shopping while Xena is in the mood for a meal. The two agree to split up and the young bard has some fun haggling this salesman. Suddenly, Gabrielle is kidnapped by this young lad Palamon, and a challenge is issued to Xena after he claims he killed her friend. The battle rages through the town and no items are safe, including this bag of oil. Upon slicing it open, some of the oil gets into her eyes, but she is still able to subdue the young warrior. Gabrielle's death was a lie for him to have a chance at Xena's head in a fair fight. Not pleased, she pressure points him for her friend's whereabouts in front of the whole town. However, Palamon doesn't speak, and the warrior princess is forced to stop the pinch. Xena asks the salesman from earlier if the oil in her eyes contains sumac, and it does. She ties the kid up and drags him along as she begins searching for Gabrielle. Palamon explains he kidnapped the young bard for dinars. This guy, Apex, hired him on behalf of King Solus to bring Gabrielle to the kingdom for her hand in marriage. And the king is not shy about expressing his love for her with tons of artwork resembling Gabrielle in the castle. When a guard informs him of Xena's advancement towards the castle, Apex demands him to solve the problem. Then he assigns this lad, Vidalis, the task of turning the commoner Gabrielle into a queen for the royal court's approval. Xena and Palamon arrive to meet his friends, but she begins having trouble seeing. Fortunately, her vision remains strong enough to destroy these fools, until she loses her sword. The warrior princess has gone blind, kind of like Hercules did in As Darkness Falls. Palamon is angered, since this means a fair fight is out of the question indefinitely, but Xena is more concerned with using him as her pair of eyes. Back at the castle, Gabrielle is caught trying to escape and Vidalis, thinking she's not queen material, reluctantly begins his mission. Back in the woods, Palamon finally explains the ordeal with King Solus to Xena. She notes the sumac caused her blindness, and the condition will become permanent if not treated with Egyptian senna in a day. Despite the threat of being blind for life, she is determined to rescue Gabrielle. Back at the castle, everyone meets Lady Gabrielle in all her stumbling glory. Apex asks this guy if it's finished, and it happens to be a casket made in her honor. What in blazes? Outside, Xena dashes with Palamon to what she thinks are trees for hiding. Instead, she nearly falls off a cliff. The warrior princess frees herself with the secret key and plunges into the ravine. No, she grabs onto this vine at the last second. Palamon agrees to help rescue Gabrielle if Xena agrees to another fight to the death when her vision is restored. Queen School is proving not to be right for Gabrielle. The young bard asks Vidalis to point her to the king and he complies after convincing him she cannot go through with the king's wishes. In the king's quarters, Gabrielle laments that every lad she falls for seems to end up dead, and so is the king. What? Apex reveals his sinister plot to have the dead king marry Gabrielle so he could cook her and seize the throne for himself. You two better climb faster, dammit. Xena tosses her chakram to distract the guards, and into the castle they go. As they wait for more guards to clear out in the hall, the warrior princess calls him out for pretending to be something he's not. Meanwhile, Apex leads the wedding with Gabrielle unable to call for help. The half-dead married couple are then thrown into their caskets. Xena and Palamon close in on the crematorium with the help of Vidalis, where the queen is close to being cooked. Apex notices her visual impairments and unleashes his men for another brawl. The warrior princess clears everyone out on instinct and barely saves her friend, who quickly notices something wrong with her eyes. After sweet revenge on Apex via death blow to his back, Vidalis says he has Egyptian senna in his garden. But is it too late? Of course not. Palamon needs his revenge match. However, he declines to fight and opts to pretend to be good for a while. Xena caps things off with a curtsy. Although this episode is not as good as the bulk of the season so far, I still like it. And now, everyone's favorite episode from Season 2, Ulysses, airing a week later as written by Stewart and directed by Levine. Xena is having trouble smelling the flowers at Gabrielle's request. However, her battle instincts are as sharp as ever as she hears this scrap on a beach. Xena takes her time smelling the flowers while watching this lad in blue take down goons until reinforcements arrive. It's 3 versus the world as we witness the heroines kicking tons of ass with that blue guy. During this fight, the seemingly smitten Xena introduces herself to Ulysses, who punctuates their victory by giant swinging the warrior princess around as a weapon. Unlike Aeolus when Hercules performed the same strategy during the Golden Hind trilogy over on the legendary journeys, Xena has fun kicking goons left and right. Ulysses, whom Gabrielle remembers as the king of Ithaca, explains his kingdom is in danger thanks to pirates sent by Poseidon. The god of the sea, voiced by director Charles Siebert, has a bone to pick with the king for blinding his Cyclops son, Polyphemus. Xena declares she will help Ulysses restore order in Ithaca, and Poseidon promises not to make their voyage to the island easy. While locating the king's ship, Xena admits she fought against his forces with the Trojans years ago, but he doesn't care, as his only enemies now are the ones who oppose Ithaca. In the evening, we find out more heavily armed pirates have surrounded his ship. Remembering Poseidon had also mentioned Ulysses' dead wife, Xena inquires for more info, and he reveals the god destroyed the wife's ship with a storm. Suddenly, Gabrielle is thirsty, giving the other two an idea. The young bard seductively distracts the scurvy-prone bastards to allow Xena and Ulysses to hop on the ship. Thank you, Mr. Tappert. The multi-pirate melee resembles a Royal Rumble from the WWF, as tons of them are tossed, smashed, and hurled off the ship and into the sea. Gabrielle even pushes one off the ship with a mop. This fight rules. The final pirate is eliminated after Ulysses takes an arrow to the shoulder originally intended for Gabrielle. Xena takes over sailing duties and turns into the healer princess to mend the king's injury. As Xena and Ulysses plan their route back to Ithaca, Gabrielle is fighting her greatest foe yet, seasickness. Don't worry, she'll win. Wait, no, she's puking. Poseidon keeps his word, sending a storm directly above them. Now would be a good time for Xena to knock her friend out. But instead, she ties Ulysses to a pole as Poseidon commands his 3 sirens to sing the king into ecstasy. Enamored with the sound, he breaks free from the rope, but Xena clocks him away from the steering wheel. The warrior princess then uses her pristine singing voice to counter the sirens' spell. Now past the threat and with Gabrielle snoozing away, Ulysses confesses his love for Xena and seals it with a kiss. Uh-oh, incoming drama.
Land ho!
They have made it to Ithaca, where Gabrielle hilariously worships dirt. The 3 find another citizen under attack and clear out the goons. The young bard's leapfrog here is one of the most adorable things you'll ever see. The saved lad turns out to be a childhood friend of Ulysses named Metacles, who couldn't be more excited to reunite him with his wife. Yes, she's alive, and everyone on the island apparently believes Ulysses is the one who is dead. Pirates invading Ithaca have demanded his wife, Penelope, to choose a new husband, and she determines that man will be the one who can string this bow. The king has had enough of this crap, choosing to run off with his new love. Xena smashes his heart by saying the love isn't mutual, anticipating it'll keep him in his kingdom. As the two heroines serve drinks in disguise, Ulysses approaches as a peasant and asks for a chance at the bow. He struggles like the rest, but Xena gives him a boost under a table. After he succeeds, he reveals himself to be alive and well to the stunned reaction of everyone. The trio work together well once more to clear out the remaining pirates. The king won't let up on his love for Xena. Give it up, lad. She demands him to assume his throne once again and learn to embrace Penelope from scratch. Ulysses finally listens, waving goodbye to the two heroines as they set sail on his ship to conclude the episode. This one has its moments, but I'm certainly not in a rush to see the overall piece again anytime soon. The Price, written by L. Sears and directed by Oli Sassoon, was the final episode of April, airing on the 28th. Gabrielle is in the middle of conquering her deadliest foe yet, this fish. The two heroines take a break by fishing for this morning's breakfast. When all signs point to a lighthearted adventure, Gabrielle fishes out a desperate dude who warns them about the Horde. With more dead soldiers floating away in the water, the heroines are surrounded and make a run for it. The Horde, a bunch of scary-looking bad mother dudes holding axes, chase after them on boats. Xena is able to help them escape temporarily with one chakram toss to this Horde's group's boat, to the dismay of their leader. With one of their axes in hand, the warrior princess recalls a deadly encounter she had against the Horde in the past, with several of her men being reduced to nothing but bones. As the heroines continue rowing downstream, more of the creatures appear from the water and the trees. Prisoners of war scream for anyone to help them, but Xena refuses. Several axes are tossed at the boat, one of which almost pierces the young bard. Another soldier jumps into the water, swimming for his life. Gabrielle convinces her friend to save him, but here's another problem.
Waterfall!
Out of nowhere, more soldiers fighting against the Horde arrive on shore, clearing out enough of them to escort the three to safety. Look at the damn carnage, King. Everyone retreats to the battle station of the Athenian army led by this man, Mercer. His forces are severely fatigued and ready to call it quits after the soldier who swam for his life earlier, Galapan, dies. Gabrielle notices this strange name being uttered by the defeated Horde members. Kaltaka. One of the archers, Geralt, says it must be the god they worship and loses his mind until Xena forces him to keep fighting. He suddenly realizes who she is, and with her booming declaration to kill every Horde bastard in sight, the Athenians have a new lease on life. But not everyone is pumped up. Gabrielle tends to injured soldiers in the hospital while Xena plots the next move with Mercer and his second in command, Menticles. With reinforcements out of the question after Galapan's death, Xena is deemed the Athenians' only shot at survival now. The warrior princess arrives to the hospital and demands every injured soldier still able to walk to report to Mercer. The young bard is left rattled by her friend's intense aggression. Another battle breaks out after the Athenians successfully lure the creatures inside the camp. Xena calls for the archers as the warrior princess theme from Hercules plays triumphantly in the background. A retreating Horde member is seen making a run for it, but despite Gabrielle's emphatic no, Xena tosses an axe to his back. Back at the hospital, the heroines bicker over the situation, with the warrior princess stating there are only lesser degrees of evil in war. It's clear her dark side has been reactivated as she holds no love lost for the Horde after what they did to her men years ago. Brilliant scene. The next move is for Mercer to go north through the forest to gather the reinforcements while the Athenians use smoke bombs to distract the Horde. After another successful defense of the camp, Xena gathers a Horde member for interrogation. Pressure pointing leads to Gabrielle begging for the violence to stop. The warrior princess scolds her for questioning her authority in front of the men. Hauntingly, she is now willing to discard her good side for victory. In the supply room, as Gabrielle fetches some water, the Horde member utters Kaltaka. Turns out the term means water. The young bard sprints outside and quenches the wounded Horde's thirst, but the fresh ones quickly surround her. As she predicted, all they wanted was water, as the fresh ones begin retreating the wounded ones in peace. The Athenians follow suit, but Mercer disobeyed Xena's order to head north. Looks like she has a battle to the death after all. Or does she? Miraculously, the injured Athenians able to walk are sent back to the hospital to assist Gabrielle once more. Xena also sets this Horde member free using the code of honor every soldier can understand. At long last, the two heroines make peace with each other as Xena compliments Gabrielle for never giving into hatred. But there's one task left for the warrior princess: defeat the leader. This battle contains fantastic back and forth action, with the combatants even exchanging their weapons during the mayhem. Using his own axe, Xena has him by the throat, but refuses to kill him in another display of the warrior's code of honor. The leader doesn't get the memo, ready to attack Xena from behind before being axed 3 times by his own men. With the Horde threat now gone, Manticles decides it's time to move out. Xena caps off the story by saying only someone like Gabrielle will be able to defeat the Horde when they return. Not only is this one of my favorite episodes of Season 2, but also one of my favorites regardless of the season we're talking about. The intensity of Xena's return to the dark side is incredible, and you can genuinely feel Gabrielle's resentment towards it. I remember thinking it could really be a wrap for these two when I first saw the episode. That's how well everyone did here. I can't put this installment over enough. I really, really like it. Lost Mariner, another one written by L. Sears and directed by Garth Maxwell, aired on Cinco de Mayo. Xena and Gabrielle are caught in the middle of a cyclone and they are shipwrecked. The young bard is noticed in the sea by this towering man in blue, calling for his shipmates to bring her and this other guy aboard. This man is none other than Cecrops, the Lost Mariner, played by Tony Todd, Candyman himself, coming off his initial appearance on the legendary Journeys in the Gladiator episode from 1995. Being on a vessel is not something Gabrielle wants to experience, much less without her friend, so she asks to be released. The Mariner declines, and the lad who was found with Gabrielle earlier shows us why. Poseidon's 300-year curse on the ship prevents anyone from escaping. Meanwhile, on the shore, Xena is held up by lead pirate Basculus, who is looking to cash in on a bounty. He tells her it's Cecrops' cursed vessel she's looking at, recommending her to come along with them to his boat instead. Curse or no curse, nothing will stop the warrior princess from getting to Cecrops' boat. Poor Gabrielle pukes again as she struggles to deal with the situation. Cecrops assigns her cooking duties to prevent the other men from getting distracted with the first woman on board the ship in a long while. As Xena outsmarts the bounty hunters, Gabrielle recounts the story of Athena's rise as goddess of Athens, defeating Poseidon in a contest per the Arbiter's vote. Cecrops reveals one element from the story rarely told. Poseidon was ticked off, cursing the Arbiter for his decision. That Arbiter was Cecrops. Only love can redeem the Mariner, which hasn't happened for 300 years. The immortality granted to him by Athena is another factor he laments, since it's no good if he can't return to land. Story time is interrupted by Xena outside, who continues destroying the persistent bounty hunters close to the ship. Cecrops does all he can to make sure she doesn't board the ship, but we all know Gabrielle is rooting for her to do so. The warrior princess tosses her chakram to bring the sails down and performs the longest jump in the history of history. Look how proud she is. Congratulations, Xena, you are now cursed. But at least she's with Gabrielle now. While following Cecrops, the now cursed warrior princess cures her friend's seasickness with a jab to the wrist, leading to a fascination with squid. Cecrops expresses the love he had for a woman named Terai, symbolized by this emerald he found during his long curse. He also notes Poseidon amassed a giant whirlpool named Charybdis, a nagging reminder of the god separating the Mariner from his long-lost love. Realizing the whirlpool has to be the solution to his problem, Xena tells Cecrops to head east. I told you Gabrielle really loves her squid. This was really octopus, and O'Connor does a great job acting like she enjoyed it when she really didn't. As the vessel heads east, Poseidon rises from the sea and offers Xena a chance off the ship with Gabrielle free and clear. She refuses, angering the god as he yells she won't get a second chance. During another storm, Gabrielle's admiration for squid is stopped when she finds out the jab to the wrist also knocked out her sense of taste. Hitseem, a longtime shipmate of Cecrops, tells Xena the mariner has decided not to sail to the whirlpool after all. What? She knocks some sense into Cecrops by telling him to face his fears and end the curse while he still has a chance. Poseidon intensifies the weather conditions, and huge crates spiral out of control on the ship. Despite Cecrops' immortal status, Hitseem saves the mariner from one of the crates at his own expense. In his grief, the mariner is offered freedom from the curse by Poseidon in exchange for Xena at the whirlpool. Cecrops steers the ship straight for Charybdis, with the uncertainty of his actions after he gets there still up in the air. At the same time, Basculus and his pirate bozos have closed in on Cecrops' vessel, with both ships now on the outer rim of the whirlpool. When the crew refuse to go to the crow's nest, Xena fearlessly takes charge. Basculus and his men are consumed by Charybdis, and Poseidon demands for Cecrops to cut the rope holding Xena up top with her own sword. The mariner vigorously refuses, tossing her sword back to her as he proudly exclaims his love for others has redeemed him. With an epic swan dive into the whirlpool, the curse is no more, and the giddy Cecrops has finally returned to land alongside the heroines and his crew. The episode ends with Gabrielle giving the now grateful immortal a new mission, locating Hitseem's daughter. Another enjoyable episode with a great performance from Tony Todd, and seeing Gabrielle munch on squid like a little kid eating candy is always funny to rewatch. Here we go, the final episode of Season 2. A Comedy of Eros, written by Mannheim and directed by the voice of Poseidon, was the finale airing on May 12th. Cupid is having trouble putting his son Bliss to bed. After quite the negotiation with his little boy, Cupid thinks Bliss has finally complied. But instead, the little boy flies off with one of his dad's bow and arrows. What could go wrong? At the Temple of Hestia, Xena says the Hestian virgins are in danger of being captured by a familiar foe, Draco. Little Bliss arrives and begins shooting arrows irresponsibly, resulting in love affairs gone wrong. Joxer the Mighty joins the heroines to help protect the virgins from Xena's longtime enemy. The warrior princess is among those shot by one of Cupid's arrows, and she grows intensely attracted to Draco. The warlord, portrayed by the returning Jay Lagaya, is as perplexed as everyone else, but it's not like he didn't appreciate her welcome. The two engage in a sword battle with Xena loving every second of it. Draco disarms her, but declines to go for the kill, placing his mission as top priority. The warrior princess works off tension with a punching bag and shadowboxing as Gabrielle tries to find out what in Tartarus has gotten into her head. Maybe she should try a cold swim like Joxer mentions. Xena says if she was able to change her evil ways, so can Draco, punctuated by a spinning wheel kick. At the warlord's camp, Draco is in the middle of a sponge bath, and she likes. The warrior princess offers an alliance to do good together, but the warlord hesitates at the thought of less profit if he accepts. When he says he needs time to think, she disappears, and he sends his second-in-command, Kragan, to begin their move towards the temple. Draco's army sees Joxer and threaten Gabrielle with his death if she resists. Draco's men charge inside the temple and chase after this lone Hestian virgin. She traps him inside this door, but Draco is right behind her. As he predicts, it's actually Xena who sent the virgins out dressed as villagers. Back outside, as Xena frees her friends, Little Bliss strikes again. This time it's Gabrielle who takes an arrow, and her hyperactive attraction is for
Joxer!
And then, by the gods, Xena and Draco are arm wrestling, and he is getting owned. And then, by the gods, Gabrielle and Joxer are singing his theme song. Sing it, you fools! Joxer the Mighty, he's very tighty. Everyone admires him, he's so
Good gods!
Well, she did say she has many skills. Joxer is living his dream. But he's not enjoying it? What is wrong with you, you idiot? He asks for water, and Gabrielle finds Xena taking Joxer's advice from earlier. Even more shocking than that is the young bard's confession of her love for the Mighty One. Even under her Draco spell, Xena notices something off with her friend's revelation. As they begin arguing, one of the virgins screams and we see Draco's men gathering them one by one. Xena begs her new love not to do this before Little Bliss's next arrow hits the Warlord. Surely, Xena and Draco will be an unstoppable team now. Nope, he falls for Gabrielle. That's all Xena needed. She finally acknowledges something is up and the brawl continues. As the young bard whacks the hell out of Draco to his amusement, Joxer lands a right hand to his jaw and barely avoids getting stabbed when this guy lawn darts himself to Draco. Hilarious tackle here. The Hestian virgins are escorted back to the temple, but one of them loses a prayer scroll on the way. Joxer notices this and runs after the bit of parchment. Draco now has himself a hostage. Wait, he has two of them. Gabrielle used tackle. It had no effect. Gabrielle used elbow to the face. Draco laughed. Gabrielle used last resort. She confesses she's in love with Joxer. Okay, even Draco knows how unlikely that sounds and sets off to kill the Mighty One. Xena frees Joxer and explains her suspicions of all this love in the air. The Mighty One mentions Aphrodite, but Xena is not convinced. Uh-oh, here comes Draco. With his blade in hand, he gets decked by Xena and she uses the term sweetie for the first time in her life. The warrior princess rescues the young bard, leading to Draco calling for a truce. The warlord demands Gabrielle and the virgins, or he will torch the entire temple. Shockingly, Xena gives him a free pass. For love, of course. Suddenly, the man Draco was working with, Penilus, played by the recurring cast member on both shows, Anthony Ray Parker, arrives with a note signed by Draco, adding a bonus to their arrangement. An Amazon princess. What a smart gal. Penilus gets impatient and demands the Amazon. And here she is. Thank you, Mr. Tappert. However, the warlord, still under the spell from the arrow, points his sword at Penilus. Sensing a double cross, the two start fighting and Draco's men chase after the virgins led by Gabrielle out of town. Little Bliss shows up again, shooting some of the virgins as they run away. Great, now they're in love with Draco's army. The slobber knocker in the town continues with Xena and Draco forming a killer tag team against Penilus. Eventually, everybody chases whoever they're in love with into the temple. This part is so great. Follow me, okay? As Joxer looks for Xena, who was looking for Draco, who was looking for Gabrielle, who was looking for Joxer, who was looking for Xena, who finds Draco and tells him that all this crap is thanks to Cupid's arrows, doesn't care, as he is adamant on converting Gabrielle over to his side. Xena says that won't happen as long as he lives for hurting others. At long last, Cupid clips his son's wings and cancels the effects from all the arrows. Well, Xena does prevent Draco from being reverted with the anticipation that he'll change to earn Gabrielle's love. "You wuss," quips Penilus before getting punched. Great line. At a campfire, Xena explains everything that happened to Joxer and Gabrielle. The young bard laughs at the thought of her and the Mighty One being in love together. As the gods as my witnesses, Joxer has been broken in half. Seriously, the season ends with Joxer in tears. That is messed up. On the bright side, the finale is another enjoyable installment with several funny moments. That will do it for our long look back at Season 2 of Xena Warrior Princess. These 22 episodes continued the towering success of the series overall, with more incredible stories and memorable moments, resulting in even more fans and bigger ratings. The highest rated episode this time around was A Necessary Evil with a 7.8. By May 1997, almost everyone knew who Xena was, and her popularity was only growing stronger. Despite her accident in New York back in October 1996, Lawless and the rest of the crew managed to carry on and deliver stellar work amid the uncertainty. Major kudos to everyone involved. Late 1996 to spring 1997 is a fascinating time in Xena history, and it's been fun reliving it with all of you. With Lawless recuperated from her hip injury, the question now was, which direction would the crew take the series next? The answer would surprise many. We will get there soon enough. For now, let me know if you've made it this far by typing out the following in the comments. People are just fish, and fish are just people. Thank you for watching, and battle on, viewers! He's every man's trusty and every woman's fantasy. Plus he's good company. Look out, Golly Jock Sir. He's Jocks of the Mighty. Jock Sir, Jocks of the Mighty.